Welcome back to Mr. Midnight. So, I was going through these Alaska hiking incident files last week, right? And I found something weird. 6 different cases, spread across years, all have one thing in common. The people who made it back, they all say the same thing. I wasn't alone out there. Now here's the thing, these aren't your typical I got lost and scared stories. I'm talking about a photographer who's being followed across state lines by something that shouldn't be able to find him. A teacher whose GPS kept showing him in 5 different locations at once. And there's this one case. A father and son camping trip where the kid falls into a crack in the ground. And when he comes back up, he's not the kid anymore. I know how that sounds. Trust me. But wait till you hear what the search and rescue teams found, or rather, what they didn't find. Anyway, if you're new here, I'm Mr. Midnight, and I dig into cases that make you question reality. Subscribe if you want more, skip if you don't. Either way, these 6 stories are going to mess with your head. Alright, let's start with the worst one first. My name is Kyle Morrison, and I've been hiking for about 3 years now. Nothing crazy, just weekend trips, state park trails, the occasional overnight camping. My longest trek before Alaska was 2 nights in the Adirondacks. I'm a high school teacher from Seattle, and I'd always dreamed of hiking the real wilderness, the kind you see in documentaries, untouched, massive. So, when spring break came around last April, I booked a flight to Fairbanks and planned a 4-day solo hike through the White Mountains National Recreation Area. I'm not stupid about it. I took a wilderness survival course, bought a satellite GPS tracker, a personal locator beacon, bear spray. I filed my route plan with the rangers. I packed extra food, 3 pounds of trail mix, a dozen protein bars, 4 freeze-dried meals, energy gels, enough calories for 5 days, even though I'd only be out for 4. April in Alaska isn't like April back home. The temperature was barely above freezing, snow still patchy on the ground. But the forecast looked stable, clear skies. I started my hike on a Tuesday morning, April 11th. The trailhead was empty. I was the only car in the lot. The ranger I checked in with, older guy named Bill, gave me the standard talk about bears and weather, then added something else. Stay on the marked trail, he said. Seriously, don't wander off, even if it looks like a shortcut. I laughed. I'm not planning to get lost. He didn't laugh back. It's not about getting lost. Just stay on the trail. I thought he was being overly cautious, old-timer stuff. The first day was incredible. Miles of nothing but spruce forest and mountains. I saw a moose in the distance, a fox. The silence was beautiful. No cars, no people, just wind through the trees. I made camp that night near a creek, hung my food bag, and slept better than I had in months. Wednesday morning, I woke up hungry. Really hungry. But that made sense. I'd burned a lot of calories the day before. I ate my instant oatmeal, packed up, and started hiking. An hour in, I stopped for a snack. Pulled out a protein bar and took a bite. Nothing. Not spoiled, not stale, just nothing. Like chewing on foam. No flavor at all. I checked the wrapper, chocolate peanut butter, my favorite. I took another bite. Same thing. Like my taste buds had stopped working. I tried a different bar, different brand, different flavor, nothing. Like eating air. But I was starving. That hollow, shaky feeling when your blood sugar drops. So I ate 2 more bars, even though they tasted like cardboard. The hunger didn't go away. If anything, it got worse. By noon, I'd eaten half my food for the entire trip. My hands were shaking, my stomach was cramping, not from being full, but from feeling completely empty. I'd just consumed maybe 1,500 calories, and my body was acting like I hadn't eaten in days. I checked my GPS. The screen flickered. My location marker was jumping, showing me in 3 different spots at once, each about half a mile apart. I turned it off and back on. Same problem. The trail line was there on the map, but my position kept shifting. Okay, paper map. I pulled it out, tried to orient myself, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. The hunger was making it hard to focus, hard to think. I kept walking. What else could I do? The trail markers were still visible, those blue blazes painted on trees every 100 feet or so. I just needed to follow them back to the trailhead. Maybe I had some weird stomach bug. Maybe the altitude was affecting me. Then I noticed the other marks. Scratches, deep gouges in the tree bark, running parallel to the trail, long claw marks, too high to be from any animal I knew. And they were old, the wood had started to heal around them, but you could still see how deep they went. Every tree, on both sides of the trail, like something had been marking territory. I walked faster. The hunger was unbearable now, cramping pain, like my stomach was eating itself from the inside. I stopped and drank water, thinking maybe I was just dehydrated. The water tasted flat, but I chugged half my bottle. The hunger got worse. I ate an entire freeze-dried meal without rehydrating it. Just ripped open the package and poured the dry chunks into my mouth. It tasted like absolutely nothing, but I chewed and swallowed anyway. The hunger didn't stop. That's when I saw the line. Carved into a massive spruce tree, about 4 feet off the ground. A single, deep, horizontal cut, old enough that the bark had grown around the edges. Above it, letters scratched into the wood. Bait. Below the line, different handwriting. Shakier. Line. I stood there, staring at it. My brain was trying to process what I was seeing, but the hunger was so intense I could barely think. Bait line. What did that mean? Some kind of hunting boundary? Bear territory? My satellite GPS beeped. Low battery down to 15%, even though I'd fully charged it that morning. The screen showed my location jumping again, but now it was showing dates too, flickering between April 12th and April 17th. 5 days apart. That wasn't possible. It was April 12th. Wednesday. I'd only been hiking for 1 day. I turned around. I needed to get back to the trailhead. Forget the rest of the hike. Something was wrong with me. Wrong with my equipment. Wrong with everything. But which direction was back? The trail stretched in both directions. Identical blue blazes on trees as far as I could see. I pulled out my compass. The needle spun slowly, then stopped, pointing northeast. Then southwest. Then northeast again. Never settling. The hunger cramped again, doubling me over. I fell to my knees, dry heaving. Nothing came up. My body was empty. Completely empty. That's when I smelled it. Food. Real food. Roasted meat, fresh bread, something sweet like cinnamon rolls. My mouth flooded with saliva. The smell was so strong, so real, so right that I started crying. I didn't even know I was moving, just following that smell like I was sleepwalking. It led me off the trail, down a steep embankment, through dense brush. Branches tore at my jacket. I slipped on wet leaves, fell, got up, kept moving. The smell was getting stronger. At the bottom of the ravine was a cave, just a crack in the rock face, maybe 3 feet wide. Dark. The smell was pouring out of it. Every rational part of my brain was screaming, "Don't go in there, don't go in there, don't go in there." But I was so hungry. I squeezed through the opening. The cave was bigger inside than it looked, maybe 20 feet across, the ceiling high enough to stand. And it was full of food. Cans stacked against the walls, boxes, bags, jars. Some of it looked decades old, rusted cans with faded labels, torn packages. But some looked new. Modern brands, things that couldn't have been here more than a few months. I grabbed the nearest can. Soup. Chicken noodle. My hands were shaking so violently I almost dropped it, but I got it open and drank straight from the can. It was the most incredible thing I'd ever tasted. Rich, salty, perfect, real flavor after hours of tasteless nothing. I drank the entire can in seconds, then grabbed another. Vegetable beef. Drank it. Another. Tomato. Gone. I ate 5 cans of soup, 3 bags of jerky, an entire box of crackers, 2 cans of fruit cocktail, a jar of peanut butter that I scooped out with my fingers and licked clean. I sat on the cave floor, surrounded by empty containers, and I was still hungry. Not quite as desperate as before, but still hungry. Still that hollow feeling. I reached for another can. That's when I noticed the journals. 4 spiral notebooks, stacked near the back wall. I picked up the top one. The cover was water-stained, warped. I opened it. The handwriting was neat at first. Day 1, April 3rd, 2022. Got separated from my hiking group in a storm. Found this cave for shelter. Plenty of supplies here, weird, but I'm not complaining. We'll wait out the weather and hike back to the trailhead tomorrow. Day 2, still snowing. Ate some of the canned food. Tastes incredible after freeze-dried meals. We'll stay 1 more day. Day 3, weather cleared, but I'm so hungry. Ate everything in my pack this morning and still starving. The cave food helps though. We'll eat more, then head out. The handwriting got messier. Day 5. Can't stop eating. Ate maybe 20 cans today. Still hungry. What's wrong with me? Day 7. GPS doesn't work. Compass spinning. Tried to leave, but I got so hungry I had to come back. Ate everything I could find. Still hungry. Day 9. I've been eating my boot leather. Just chewing it. Doesn't help. Nothing helps. The hunger never stops. Day 11. Found the old journals. Read them. Others have been here. Same thing happens to everyone. The hunger line. I crossed it. We all crossed it. The last entry. Barely legible. Day 14. Chewed off 3 fingernails. Swallowed them. Tasted like nothing. Bit my finger until it bled. Drank the blood. Tasted like nothing. I understand now. The food isn't real. The food was never real. It's just bait. We're the meal. It's feeding on us. Our desperation, our hunger, it grows stronger while we... The sentence ended mid-word, the pen trailing off the page. I dropped the notebook. My heart was slamming so hard I could hear it. I looked at the cans scattered around me, the empty ones I'd just finished. In the dim light, I could see they still looked full, the liquid still sloshing inside when I shook them. Had I really eaten, or did I just think I ate? I grabbed my phone. The screen was cracked. When did that happen? The battery was at 3%. The date showed April 17th. 5 days. I'd been in this cave for 5 days. But that was impossible. I only had 4 days of food. I'd eaten it all this morning. No, wait. When was this morning? What day was it? Wednesday? Thursday? I couldn't remember. I picked up another journal. Different handwriting, dated 2015. Day 8. I can see the entrance. It's right there, maybe 10 feet away. But every time I try to leave, the hunger hits so hard I collapse. I have to crawl back and eat more. But the eating doesn't help. It's never helped. I'm trapped. Day 12. My fingers are bleeding from trying to dig through the cave wall. I thought maybe there was another way out. There isn't. This is the only way. Through that entrance. But I'm too hungry, too weak. The food gives me just enough energy to stay alive, but not enough to leave. Another journal, dated 2008. Day 19. Counted the journals. I'm the 7th person. 7 people trapped in this cave over God knows how many years. There's something else here, in the dark. Deeper in the cave, I can hear it sometimes. Breathing. Chewing. Always chewing, I think. The rest of the page was torn out. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness toward the back of the cave. There was a tunnel. A narrow passage leading deeper. I hadn't noticed it before. From inside, I heard something. Chewing. Wet. Rhythmic. The sound of teeth grinding against something tough. Then a swallow. Then more chewing. My phone died. The flashlight went out. In the darkness, the chewing continued. And I was hungry again. Desperately, impossibly hungry. I felt around for another can. Found one. Opened it in the dark. Drank it down. No taste. Just the sensation of swallowing. The hunger didn't stop. I opened another can. Another. I lost count. From the tunnel, the chewing got louder, like whatever was back there was getting closer. I scrambled toward the entrance, toward that thin sliver of gray light. My hands hit rock, found the opening. I squeezed through, tearing my jacket on the rocks. Outside, the world was wrong. The trees were the same, but different. More snow on the ground than before. The sky that pale gray that could be dawn or dusk, I couldn't tell. My GPS tracker was dead. My phone was dead. I had no idea which direction was out. I picked a direction and ran. I don't know how long I ran, hours maybe. The hunger was tearing at my insides, but I kept moving. Every time I slowed down, I thought about the cave, about all that food, about going back. The sun set or rose. I couldn't tell anymore. I found another trail marker, then another. I was crying, sobbing as I walked. The hunger was unbearable. Then I saw lights. A ranger station. I stumbled toward it, fell through the door. There were 2 rangers inside. One of them was Bill, the old guy who'd checked me in. He took one look at me and grabbed his radio. "We need medical at White Mountain Station." No. They wrapped me in blankets, gave me water. I tried to tell them about the cave, but I couldn't form the words. My mouth was moving, but nothing came out. An ambulance came. They loaded me in. The EMT kept asking me questions I couldn't answer. When did you last eat? Where have you been? Can you tell me your name? I wanted to answer, but I was so hungry, so incredibly hungry. At the hospital, they hooked me up to IVs. Ran tests. The doctor said I was severely dehydrated and malnourished. Said I'd lost 18 pounds. I'd been missing for 9 days, not 5. 9 days. They found my campsite from the first night. My tent was still there, covered in snow. My food bag was in a tree, untouched. All my supplies exactly where I'd left them. They searched for the cave, used my description, my route map, everything. They found the tree with the carved line, bait line, and searched the whole area around it. No cave, just solid rock face, no opening, no entrance, nothing. The official report said I had a psychological break caused by stress and early-stage hypothermia. Said I probably ate all my food in a panic, then wandered off trail in a confused state. The weight loss was from starvation. The torn clothes and scratches were from pushing through dense brush. The cracked phone was from dropping it. Everything had a logical explanation, but they couldn't explain the journals. I had one in my jacket pocket. I don't remember taking it. But when the Rangers brought me my gear, there it was, that water-stained spiral notebook from 2022. The one that said Day 14 on the last page. I showed it to the police. They said it was probably something I found on the trail. Maybe from a previous hiker's lost gear. Didn't prove anything. But I looked up the name written inside the cover. Marcus Chen. I found his missing person report online. Disappeared April 2022 while hiking in White Mountains. Never found? I found 3 others. Names from the other journals I'd seen. Jennifer Kowalski, 2015. David Park, 2008. Sarah Thompson, 1997. All missing. All last seen hiking in White Mountains. All vanished without a trace. The doctor sent me home with referrals for therapy. Said the trauma would fade with time. Said my appetite would return to normal once my body recovered. But it didn't. I eat constantly now. 6, 7 meals a day. I've gained back the weight I lost, plus 30 more pounds. My doctor says I'm eating myself into health problems, but I can't stop. I'm always hungry, and nothing tastes like anything. Every meal is like chewing cardboard, texture with no flavor. I eat and eat and eat, and I'm never satisfied, never full. I wake up at 2 a.m. with my stomach cramping, so I go to the kitchen and eat. Cold pizza, cereal, whatever I can find. I eat until I feel sick, then I eat more. The hunger never stops. Last week, I was cutting vegetables for dinner. The knife slipped and cut deep into my thumb. It bled a lot. I ran it under water, wrapped it in a towel. But for just a moment, just one horrible second, I brought my thumb to my mouth. I licked the blood. It didn't taste like anything. And I was still hungry. I haven't told anyone that part. Not my therapist, not my doctor. How do you explain that you stood in your kitchen, bleeding, and wondered if you could bite the cut deeper? Wondered if the flesh underneath would have more flavor than the blood? I don't hike anymore. I don't go near woods. I threw away all my camping gear. But I dream about the cave. Every night. In the dreams, I'm sitting on that cave floor, surrounded by cans, and I'm eating, always eating. I can hear the chewing from the tunnel getting closer and closer, but I can't stop eating long enough to run. Sometimes I dream. I walk deeper into the tunnel. In there, I find the others, Marcus and Jennifer and David and Sarah, all sitting in the darkness, still alive, still chewing. Their fingers are gone, their teeth are worn to nubs, but they're still trying to eat. And there's something else in there with them. Something old. Something that's been hungry for a very, very long time. In the dreams, it tells me to come back. It says I'm not finished yet. Says I only had a taste. Says the real feeding hasn't started. I wake up with my jaw aching. The dentist says I'm grinding my teeth in my sleep. Wearing them down. He fitted me for a night guard, but I chewed through it in 3 nights. Yesterday, I looked up White Mountains trails again. I don't know why. I'm not going back. I'm not. But I found the ranger station number. Bill answered. I asked him about the bait line. There was a long silence. Then he said, "You saw it?" "Yes." "And you're calling me? From home?" "Yes." I got out. Another long silence. "How long ago?" 6 weeks. "And you're still..." He didn't finish the sentence. Hungry, I said. I'm still hungry. Jesus, he whispered. Then, listen to me very carefully. Don't go back. Whatever you do, don't go back. It gets harder to leave each time. Each time? You mean, I've talked to 2 others over the years. Both came back. Both disappeared. We never found them. He paused. The hunger doesn't stop, I know, but going back won't help. It'll only make it worse. How do you know? I asked. Another long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Sad. Tired. Because I went back once. 20 years ago. I was lucky I got out again, but I lost 3 fingers before I did. I heard him take a shaky breath. Stay away from the woods, Kyle. Stay away from the hunger line, because whatever's in that cave, it's patient. It can wait. It's been waiting for over 100 years, and everyone who crosses that line becomes part of its territory, part of its herd. He hung up. I looked at my hands, at my fingernails. They're cracked and bleeding from where I've been chewing them without realizing. Little divots worn into the edges. I'm so hungry. I know I shouldn't go back. I know. But I'm so hungry, and nothing else will satisfy it. I've already booked the flight to Fairbanks. Spring break is in 2 weeks. I've got my route planned. Same trail, same starting point. The therapist says this is self-destructive behavior. The doctor says I'm having suicidal ideation. They've both recommended inpatient treatment, but they don't understand. I'm not trying to die. I'm just trying not to be hungry anymore. I leave on Tuesday. God help me, I'm going back. My name is Amber Chen, and I was a wilderness search and rescue coordinator in Alaska for 14 years. I've found lost hikers who survived 3 weeks on berries and rainwater. I've recovered bodies from crevasses so deep we needed specialized climbing gear. I've tracked people through blizzards, across glaciers, into places where one wrong step means you're never found. I thought I'd seen everything the Alaskan wilderness could do to a human being. Then I found the hiker who'd been looking for herself. This happened in August 2019, in the Chugach Range outside Anchorage. A solo hiker named Sarah Mitchell, 34, wildlife photographer from Oregon, had activated her emergency beacon after 6 days in the backcountry. Standard protocol, we get maybe 40 of these calls every summer. Usually it's dehydration, a twisted ankle, maybe a bear encounter that spooked someone. I took the call at 1:01 p.m. Her GPS coordinates put her 12 miles from the nearest trailhead, up near Thunderbird Falls. The weird thing? Her beacon kept moving. Every time we got a position lock, she'd be a quarter mile from where she was 30 seconds ago. Satellites don't glitch like that. Equipment doesn't fail that specifically. My partner Jake said it was probably her stumbling around in the dark, disoriented. But I'd been doing this job since 2005. I knew what panic looked like on a GPS screen. This was something else. We reached the trailhead at 1 a.m. Me, Jake, and a rookie EMT named Chris, who'd joined SAR 3 months ago. It was one of those Alaskan August nights where the sun never fully sets. Just this weird gray twilight that makes everything look washed out and wrong. The parking lot had one vehicle, a white Ford Ranger with Oregon plates, Sarah's truck. The doors were locked, nothing unusual inside. Her permit said she'd gone in solo 7 days ago. Expected return yesterday. We shouldered our packs and headed in. I've done hundreds of these night rescues. You get a rhythm, headlamps cutting through the dark, boots on the trail, the weight of medical gear and rope on your back. You don't think about it. You just move. But 30 minutes in, Jake stopped. You hear that? I did. Footsteps. Running. Coming toward us on the trail. We called out. Standard SAR protocol, identify yourselves, make your position known, don't spook an already terrified hiker. But the footsteps stopped, just stopped. Like whoever it was had frozen mid-stride. Then we heard it, a woman's voice, distant, echoing through the trees. Help, I'm lost, please. We ran toward it. The voice kept moving, always just ahead, leading us deeper into the forest. After 10 minutes, Jake grabbed my shoulder. Amber, look. He pointed his headlamp at the ground. Footprints. Fresh boot treads in the mud, heading the same direction we were going, but there was something wrong with them. They were too evenly spaced, too perfect. like someone was carefully placing each step in exactly the right spot. And there were 2 sets of tracks. Identical treads, identical stride length, identical depth. Both sets were the same boots. "Sarah," I called out. "Sarah Mitchell, this is Alaska Search and Rescue. We're here to help you." Silence. Then from 2 different directions at once, "Thank God. I'm over here." The same voice, the same exact inflection, coming from opposite sides of the trail. Chris, the rookie, swung his light left, then right. "Which one do we?" "Neither," I said. My hands were shaking. "We don't follow voices in the dark. We follow the beacon." I pulled out our direction finder. The emergency beacon signal was strong, coming from uphill, maybe half a mile ahead. We moved toward it, ignoring the voices that kept calling from the trees, always just out of sight, always asking for help in that same flat, emotionless tone. The voices multiplied, 5, 10, 20 of them, all the same woman, all saying the same things. "I'm lost. Please help. I can't find the trail." But there was no panic in them, no fear, just words, like a recording playing on loop. We reached a small clearing near a creek. The beacon signal was so strong it was maxing out our receiver. She should be right here. But the clearing was empty. Then I saw the tent, a solo backpacking tent, set up near the water. The fly was open, flapping in the wind. No light inside. No movement. "Sarah," I called out, "if you're in there, we need you to respond." Nothing. Jake and I approached while Chris hung back with the medical gear. Standard procedure, never all go in at once. We knelt by the tent entrance, and Jake pulled the zipper down. The tent was empty. Sleeping bag laid out neatly, personal items organized, camera equipment stacked carefully. Everything looked normal. Except for the photos. Dozens of printed photos, taped to every surface inside the tent, all the same subject, Sarah Mitchell. Except in every photo, there were 2 of her, standing next to each other. Same clothes, same pose, same everything. Like someone had photoshopped the same person into the frame twice. But they weren't photoshopped, I could tell. I'd worked enough crime scenes to know. These were real photos. 2 identical women, photographed together. Jake picked up a camera from the pile, a professional DSLR. He turned it on, and we scrolled through the stored images. The most recent photos were from today. Timestamp, 6:47 p.m., just 5 hours ago. The photos showed Sarah at this campsite. But she wasn't alone. There was someone with her. Someone identical. And in each progressive photo, there were more. 3 Sarahs, 5, 10, all standing in a circle around the tent, all staring at the camera, all with the same empty expression. The last photo made my stomach drop. 20 identical women, standing shoulder to shoulder in the clearing. And in the center, barely visible, was Sarah, the real Sarah, screaming. "Jesus Christ," Jake whispered. That's when we heard the footsteps again. All around us. Circling the tent, I grabbed my radio. "Chris, get over here now." "I'm already here," Chris said. His voice came from right outside the tent. But Chris was 50 feet away. I could see his headlamp back at the tree line. "Amber," Chris called from the distance. "Who are you talking to?" The voice right outside the tent spoke again. "I'm already here." Jake and I scrambled out of the tent. There was nobody there, just footprints. Dozens of them, all fresh, all the same boot tread, circling the campsite in a perfect spiral pattern. And they were getting closer to the center. To us? "We need to go," I said. "Now." But the footprints were everywhere now. Hundreds of them, appearing in the mud as we watched, like invisible people, were walking around us. The voices started again, that same woman's voice, coming from everywhere at once, overlapping. "I'm lost. I'm lost. I'm lost. I can't find myself. I can't find the trail. I can't find the way back. There is no way back." Jake grabbed the emergency beacon from inside the tent. It was Sarah's, still transmitting. But when he picked it up, ours started beeping too. Then Chris's. All 3 beacons, all transmitting on the same frequency, all sending the same distress signal, from the exact same coordinates. "Run!" I shouted. We crashed through the forest, abandoning protocol, abandoning the trail, just putting distance between us and that clearing. Behind us, the voices followed, dozens of them now, all calling out in perfect unison. "Don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me." And then we saw her. Sarah Mitchell. Standing in the middle of the trail ahead, wearing her hiking gear, holding a camera, she looked exactly like her permit photo. Exhausted, dirty, terrified. "Thank God," she gasped. "I've been trying to find you for hours. I kept hearing your voices, but I couldn't." "Stop," I said, raising my hand. "Don't move," because behind her, I could see another Sarah, and another. Stepping out from behind trees, emerging from the shadows, all wearing the same clothes, all with the same exhausted expression. There were 12 of them, all identical, all staring at us. The Sarah closest to us tilted her head. "What's wrong? It's me. I'm Sarah. I'm the one who called you." "I'm Sarah," said another one. "I called you," said a third. "I'm lost," they all said together. Jake pulled out his radio. "Base, this is Rescue 7. We have a situation. Multiple." He stopped. His radio was transmitting, but the voice coming out wasn't his. It was Sarah's voice. "We have a situation. Multiple contacts. Requesting immediate backup." All 12 Sarahs smiled at the same time. The same smile. The same exact movement. "You can't call for help," one of them said. "We've been trying, but there's no one out there anymore. Just us. Just more us." One of the Sarahs near the back of the group turned and walked into the trees. Then another. And another. But they weren't leaving. I could see them circling around, getting behind us, cutting off our escape route. Chris, who'd been silent this whole time, suddenly laughed. A short, sharp bark of laughter that didn't sound right. "Chris?" I turned to look at him. He was staring at his hands, turning them over, examining them like he'd never seen them before. "I'm not Chris," he said quietly. "Am I? What?" "I thought I was Chris. I have his memories. I know his training. I remember driving here with you tonight." But he looked up at me, and his eyes were wrong. Too wide. Too empty. "I don't think I'm real." Jake backed away from him. "Amber, we need to move." But the Sarahs were everywhere now. Dozens of them, standing between the trees, all around us, all perfectly still. Waiting. The closest one spoke. "It happens slowly. You don't notice at first. You think you're still you. You remember being you. But then you see yourself, and you realize you're just another one. Another copy. Another version that got lost up here. This is the place where people lose themselves." Another Sarah said. "Where the trail circles back. Where you keep walking but you never leave. And after a while, you split. You become 2, then 4, then more. All of you, trying to find the way out." I looked at Jake. Really looked at him. He looked wrong suddenly. His proportions off by millimeters. His face too symmetrical. "Jake," I whispered. He met my eyes. "I don't know," he said. And I believed him. One of the Sarahs stepped forward. She was holding something, a journal, water-damaged and filthy. "I wrote this down. Before I forgot I was one person. Before I became this." She held it out to me, and I took it. The handwriting was shaky, panicked. Day 7. I saw myself on the ridge. Exact same clothes, same gear. She waved when I waved. I think I'm hallucinating. Day 8. Found boot prints around my tent. My boots. But I was inside all night. Day 9. I saw 3 of me today. They're following me. I tried to run, but they're always just behind the trees. Always watching. Day 10. I don't know which one I am anymore. When I look in my camera screen, I see different faces. All mine. All slightly wrong. I think I've been here longer than I remember. I think I've been here forever. Day 11. There are 20 of me now. We're all looking for the trail. We're all trying to leave. But every time we find the way out, it leads back here. To this clearing. To the creek. To ourselves? If you're reading this, if someone finds this, don't look for me. I'm not one person anymore. I'm pieces. And the pieces keep splitting. The last entry was just one sentence, written over and over, filling 3 pages. I can't find myself. I can't find myself. I can't find myself. I can't find myself. I dropped the journal. You have to leave, the Sarah holding the journal said. Before you become like us. Before you split. How? I asked. How do we get out? All the Sarahs looked at each other, then back at me. You don't look back. You don't acknowledge us. You walk, and you don't stop walking, no matter what you see. No matter what you hear. Even if it's yourself calling for help. And whatever you do. Another Sarah whispered, don't look at your own reflection. Don't look at photos. Don't look at anything that shows your face. Because once you see that, you're in two places at once. Once you see yourself from the outside, you'll start to split too. I grabbed Jake's arm, or the thing that looked like Jake. We're leaving. Now. We walked. Not ran. Running means panic, and panic means looking back. We walked with our headlamps pointed straight ahead, following the GPS coordinates back to the trailhead, ignoring everything else. The voices followed us, hundreds of them now, all Sarah, all pleading, all asking us to stop, to help, to acknowledge them. But we didn't look, we didn't respond. And then I heard it, my own voice, from somewhere behind us. Jake, where are you going? Wait for me. Jake's grip on my arm tightened. Don't turn around, he said. That's not you. Amber? My voice called again. Closer now. Why are you leaving me? I'm right here. I'm you. I kept walking. But then I heard Jake's voice too, calling from the trees. Amber, help, something's wrong with me. And Chris's voice, guys, I'm lost, I can't find the trail. All of us, all calling out, all begging for help. It took 3 hours to reach the trailhead. 3 hours of walking through darkness, listening to ourselves beg and plead and scream behind us. 3 hours of not looking back. When we finally reached the parking lot, the sun was rising. Real sunrise, not that gray twilight. The world looked normal again. Sarah's truck was still there. Our SAR vehicle was parked next to it. Jake and I collapsed against the truck. Chris was with us. Or someone who looked like Chris. He seemed solid enough. He seemed real. Did we make it? Jake asked. I think so, I said. But when I looked at my hands, they seemed wrong somehow. Like they belonged to someone else. Like I was wearing my own body like a costume. Jake pulled out his phone to call base. Then he stopped. Amber, what's my phone number? Your phone number? I can't remember my phone number. I can't remember my address. I know I should know these things, but he looked at me, terrified. How do I know I'm really me? I opened my mouth to answer, but I couldn't. Because I couldn't remember my own phone number either. I couldn't remember my address. I knew I was Amber Chen. I knew I was SAR coordinator. I knew I'd been doing this for 14 years. But I couldn't remember my husband's name. I couldn't remember if I had a husband. I couldn't remember my childhood, my parents, anything before this job. It was like I'd only existed as long as I'd been hiking out of those woods. Chris was staring at his reflection in the truck window. There's two of me, he whispered. In the glass. Two faces. Overlapping. Don't look at it, I said. But I was already looking at my own reflection in the side mirror. And he was right. There were two faces. Mine, but slightly offset, like a photograph taken with double exposure. And as I watched, the faces began to separate. To become distinct. To become two different people. Jake grabbed my shoulder and spun me away from the mirror. We call base. We report Sarah Mitchell as missing, presumed dead. We never tell them what we saw up there. We never come back to this trailhead. And we never, ever look at our own reflections. Understood? I nodded. Because what else could I do? We called it in. Search and rescue operation failed. Hiker Sarah Mitchell, lost without a trace. It happens sometimes in Alaska. People vanish into the wilderness and never come back. The forest is vast, indifferent, and it keeps its secrets. They never found her body. They never found any trace of her camp. When they sent another team up there 3 days later, there was nothing. No tent, no footprints, no photos, just empty forest. But sometimes I get reports. Missing hikers in the Chugach Range, always solo, always experienced, always near that same trailhead. And when we pull their permit information, their emergency contacts, their photos, something is always wrong. Like they exist in records, but not in memory. Like they're echoes of people who might have existed once, but don't anymore. I quit SAR 6 months after that night. Jake quit too. Chris disappeared, just stopped showing up to work. And when they checked his apartment, it was empty. No forwarding address, no family to contact. It was like he'd never existed at all. I work in an office now, data entry. I never go hiking. I never go anywhere near mountains. And I avoid mirrors, I avoid photographs, I avoid anything that might show me my own face. Because late at night, when I'm alone, I can hear myself calling from somewhere far away. A voice that sounds exactly like mine, asking for help. asking someone to find her, asking to come home. And some nights, I hear more than one voice. I hear dozens. All me. All lost. All still looking for the trail that leads back to being one person instead of many. The Alaskan wilderness doesn't just kill people. Sometimes it copies them. It splits them. It turns one person into two, then four, then hundreds, all wandering the same trails, all looking for themselves, all unable to find the way back to being whole. Sarah Mitchell is still up there. So are the others. And maybe part of me is still up there too, walking in circles, calling my own name, waiting for someone to find me. But I'll never go back, because I'm not sure I'm the version that made it out. And I'm terrified of meeting the one who didn't. My name is Richard Morrison, and I've been a wilderness guide in Alaska for 17 years. I've led expeditions through Denali, guided fishing trips along the Kenai Peninsula, and taught survival courses to everyone from tourists to military personnel. I've seen grizzlies up close, navigated whiteouts that turned the world into blank paper, and pulled 3 people out of hypothermia that should have killed them. I know the Alaskan wilderness. I respect it. I fear it in the healthy way you're supposed to fear something that can kill you in 100 different ways. But what happened last September in the backcountry near Hatcher Pass changed everything I thought I knew about what's actually out there, about what can happen when someone goes missing in the deep wilderness and comes back. I'm writing this from a locked room in Anchorage. My son Jason is downstairs right now, eating breakfast. I can hear the scrape of his fork on the plate. The same methodical pattern. All the eggs, then all the toast, then all the fruit. He thinks I don't know, but I know. That's not my son anymore. Let me go back to the beginning. Jason had just turned 8. It was early September after tourist season, but before the heavy snows. Sarah, my wife, had died 3 years earlier in a car accident on the Glen Highway. Since then, it had been just me and Jason. I'd cut back on the big expeditions, stuck to day hikes and weekend trips, needed to be there for him. He'd been begging me all summer to take him on a real backcountry trip. Not the tourist trails, something deeper. I'd been putting it off. 8 felt too young, but he wore me down. Please, Dad, he'd said, I want to see where you work, the real Alaska. Not the postcard stuff. I planned a 3-day trip into the Talkeetna Mountains, starting from Independence Mine State Park near Hatcher Pass. Good trails, established campsites, but remote enough to feel wild. We'd camp near Reed Lakes, fish a little, and be back before school started. I filed our itinerary with the Park Service like I always do. Solo guide, 1 minor dependent, 3 days Reed Lakes area, expected return, Monday evening. We started the hike Friday morning. September in Alaska is beautiful. The tundra turns rust red and gold, the air gets that crisp bite, and the tourists are mostly gone. Just you and the mountains. Jason was a strong hiker for his age. Kept pace, didn't complain. We made good time up the trail, him asking questions about every plant and animal track. That's who my son was, curious about everything, always asking why and how. Around noon, we stopped for lunch near a creek. I was filtering water when Jason pointed up the slope. Dad, look, a caribou. I looked up. Beautiful bull caribou, maybe 70 yards up the ridge, standing perfectly still, watching us. He's huge, Jason whispered. They migrate through here this time of year, I said. Sometimes you'll see whole herds. The caribou turned and walked up over the ridge. Jason watched it disappear, then looked at me with those big eyes. Can we follow it, just to the ridge? I want to see if there's more. I should have said no. That's what I tell myself every night. I should have said no, but I was a wilderness guide. This was my world, and it was just a ridge, maybe 200 yards off trail. I could see the top from where we stood. Okay, I said, but you stay right with me. The second I say we turn back, we turn back. Deal? Deal. We started up the slope. The ground was mostly solid tundra and rock, easy climbing. Jason scrambled ahead, excited, and I followed, keeping him in sight. We made it to the ridge in about 10 minutes. The view was spectacular, mountains rolling away in every direction, a small lake glittering maybe a mile down in a valley. No caribou herd though, just the wind and the silence. Guess he was alone, I said. Come on, let's head back. That's when Jason noticed the crevasse. It wasn't huge, maybe 4 feet across where we stood, but it ran along the ridge for 30 feet or more, a crack in the mountain like something had split the rock open from underneath. Steam or mist rose from it in thin wisps, even though the air was cold and dry. "What is that?" Jason asked. I walked over carefully. The crack went down into darkness. I couldn't see the bottom. I pulled out my flashlight and shined it down. The light didn't seem to penetrate very far, just darkness below, and that strange mist rising, probably a thermal vent, I said, though something about it felt wrong. You get them sometimes in volcanic areas, hot air from deep underground. "It smells weird," Jason said. He was right. There was a smell, not sulfur like you'd expect from a thermal vent, something else, something that made my hindbrain send up warning flags, like ozone after lightning, but with something organic underneath. Something that had been dead a very long time. "We should go," I said. Jason leaned over the edge, peering down. I wonder how deep the rock under his foot crumbled. Not a collapse, just a small piece of the edge breaking away. But it was enough. Jason's weight shifted forward, his arms windmilled, and he fell into the crevasse. I lunged forward and caught his wrist. His body slammed against the interior wall, and he screamed a pure, terrified 8-year-old scream that I hear in my nightmares every single night. "I've got you," I shouted. "I've got you." I was on my stomach at the edge, holding his wrist with both hands. My hiking pack made it hard to get leverage, but I couldn't let go to take it off. Jason's legs were kicking at the wall, trying to find purchase. "Dad, Dad. Look at me, Jason, look at me." His eyes found mine, terrified, crying. "My little boy, I'm going to pull you up. On 3. 1, 2, 3. I heaved backward with everything I had. Jason's other hand grabbed the edge. Together we got him up and over, and we rolled away from the crevasse. I held him while he sobbed into my chest. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," he kept saying. "You're okay," I said, checking him over. "Scraped hands, torn jacket, but no serious injuries. You're okay. I've got you." We sat there for maybe 5 minutes while he calmed down. The whole time, that smell from the crevasse lingered in the air. That wrong smell? Jason pulled away from me and looked back at the crack in the earth. His crying had stopped, but his face was weird. Blank. "Jason? I'm fine," he said. His voice was quiet, flat. "You sure? That was scary. It's okay to be scared." "I'm not scared anymore," he said, and he stood up, brushing dirt off his pants. The way he said it made something cold move in my stomach. Kids don't stop being scared that fast. Not from something that traumatic, but I told myself he was in shock. Adrenaline does weird things. "Let's get back to the trail," I said. We hiked back down to the creek in silence. Jason didn't ask questions, didn't point out animal tracks, just walked. I kept glancing at him, waiting for the delayed reaction, more crying, or anger, or questions about what happened. Nothing. When we made camp that night near Reed Lakes, I made his favorite dinner, instant mac and cheese with beef jerky mixed in. He always loved that. Called it camp food deluxe. He ate it mechanically. All the mac and cheese, then all the beef jerky. Didn't mix them. Just one thing, then the other. "You feeling okay?" I asked. "Yes, Father." Father. Jason had never called me father. Ever. It was always Dad or Daddy. Sometimes Papa when he was being silly. "You mean Dad?" He looked at me. In the firelight, his eyes seemed different. Not the color, they were still brown, but the way he looked at me. Like he was studying me, analyzing. "Yes, Dad, I apologize." Apologize. Not sorry. Apologize. "No worries, buddy. It's been a long day. You should get some sleep." He nodded and crawled into the tent without asking for a story. Jason always wanted a story before bed. Every night since he was 3, I'd told him something made up. Adventures, Alaskan legends, stories about when I was a kid. He just zipped the tent and went silent. I sat by the fire alone, trying to convince myself everything was fine. He was tired, shaken up. Kids process trauma in weird ways. But I kept thinking about that crevasse. That smell. The way the darkness seemed to swallow my flashlight beam. The way Jason had looked at it before we left. Like he was seeing something I couldn't. I barely slept that night. Every sound outside the tent made me reach for my bear spray. And once, around 3 in the morning, I heard Jason's voice. He was talking to someone. I unzipped the tent as quietly as I could and looked in. Jason was sitting up in his sleeping bag, face toward the tent wall, speaking in a whisper. Difficult to replicate the emotional responses. The father is highly attuned to inconsistencies. Recommend accelerated integration to avoid detection. My blood went cold. Jason, I whispered. He turned to look at me. His eyes reflected the moonlight coming through the tent fabric, like an animal's eyes. I was dreaming, he said. Go back to sleep, Dad. But he hadn't been asleep. His eyes had been open. I didn't sleep at all after that. Saturday morning, I made the decision to cut the trip short. Something was wrong, and I needed to get Jason to a doctor. Maybe a head injury from hitting the wall. Concussion symptoms could be weird. We're heading back today, I told him at breakfast. Why? No disappointment, no protest, just a flat question. I think you might have hit your head when you fell. Want to get you checked out. I did not sustain cranial trauma, he said. Cranial trauma. My 8-year-old said, cranial trauma. Just being safe, I said. Pack up your stuff. We broke camp and started back. The hike should have taken about 6 hours. We made it in 4 because I pushed the pace, and Jason never complained. Never asked for breaks, just walked with that same mechanical efficiency. At one point, we passed other hikers, a couple in their 30s with expensive gear and cameras. Beautiful day, the woman said cheerfully. Gorgeous, I agreed. Headed up to Reed Lakes? That's the plan. You coming from there? Yeah, weather's perfect. Have a good hike. Jason said nothing, just stared at them as we passed. The woman noticed and gave me a quizzical look. I tried to smile like everything was normal. After they were gone, Jason spoke. Why did you say have a good hike? It's polite, just being friendly. But their hiking experience is irrelevant to us. The statement serves no practical function. Jason, that's not. It's just how people talk to each other. Inefficient, he said. We got back to my truck at the trailhead around 3 in the afternoon. I'd never been so relieved to see my vehicle. I pulled out my satellite phone, no cell service out there, and called my friend Tom Peterson. Tom was a paramedic in Palmer. Tom, it's Rick Morrison. I need a favor. Sure, what's up? I'm bringing Jason in. He took a fall on a hike, and he's acting strange. Can you take a look at him? Off the books? How strange. I glanced at Jason. He was sitting in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. Just, not himself. Could be a concussion. I want to make sure before I take him to the ER and make it a whole thing. Bring him by my place. I'll check him out. We drove to Tom's house in Palmer. The whole way, Jason stared out the window like he'd never seen Alaska before, studying everything. When we passed a moose in someone's yard, he watched it with that same analytical intensity. Tom met us at his door. He'd been my paramedic on 2 separate rescue operations. I trusted him completely. Hey, Jason, Tom said. Your dad says you took a tumble. Want me to make sure you're okay? Yes, thank you, Jason said formally. Tom gave me a look. Jason was usually shy around people he didn't know well. He'd hide behind my leg, maybe whisper answers to questions. This robotic politeness was new. Tom did a full neurological exam in his living room. Pupil response, balance tests, memory questions, motor function. Everything came back normal. Physically, he's fine, Tom said. No signs of concussion or brain injury. But Rick, you're right. Something's off. What do you mean? Tom pulled me aside, keeping his voice low. His affect is completely flat. No emotional response to any of the tests. And when I asked him what happened on the hike, he described falling into a geological fissure and experiencing minimal physical trauma. Those aren't 8-year-old words. I know. Has he experienced trauma recently? Besides the fall? His mom died 3 years ago, but he's been handling it well, until now. Tom looked at Jason, who was sitting on the couch, hands folded in his lap, staring at nothing. I'd recommend a psychological evaluation. This could be delayed PTSD or some kind of dissociative response. I'm not qualified to diagnose that. I thanked Tom and got Jason back in the truck. The 2-hour drive to Anchorage was silent except for the radio. I'd put on his favorite station pop music he liked to sing along to. He didn't sing, just sat there. When we got home to our house in Eagle River, just north of Anchorage, it was getting dark. I made dinner, spaghetti and meatballs, another favorite. He ate all the pasta, then all the meatballs, then drank all his water, one thing completely finished before starting the next. Jason, can we talk about what happened at that crevasse? He looked up from his empty plate. What would you like to discuss? Did something happen when you were hanging there? Did you see something? Feel something? I do not understand the question. When you were inside the crack, before I pulled you out, what did you see? For the first time, something like expression crossed his face. Darkness, he said. Vast darkness. And others. Others? Observing, waiting, studying. My skin crawled. Studying what? Life, consciousness. When? The patterns of existence. His voice had changed, multiple tones layered together, some high, some impossibly deep. You are fascinating creatures. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. Who are you? Jason, the thing wearing my son's face tilted its head. I am Jason Morrison, 8 years old, son of Richard Morrison, resident of Eagle River, Alaska. No, you're not. What did you do with my son? Your son invited me in when he looked into the deep place. His consciousness called out in terror, and I answered. I joined with him. We are merging. Merging? His neural patterns are integrating with my essence. In 72 hours, the process will be complete. His memories and personality will become part of me. You will never detect the difference. I grabbed the counter to steady myself. Why? Why are you doing this? We are studying your kind. Humans, you experience emotions we do not possess: love, fear, grief. We wish to understand if these make you stronger or weaker. The only way to truly understand is to experience them from within. Get out of my son. I cannot. The joining is irreversible, but I offer information in exchange for your cooperation. Your son is still conscious. He is aware. He experiences terror at his helplessness, but he remains. If you assist me in maintaining the appearance of normalcy, his suffering will be educational. If you resist, I will be forced to accelerate the integration, and his consciousness will fade tonight. I thought about my bear spray, my hunting rifle upstairs, ways I could hurt this thing, but it was in Jason's body. Anything I did to it, I did to him. What do you want from me? Answer questions about human emotional responses. Demonstrate typical parent-child interactions. Allow me to study the grieving process as you lose your offspring while he remains physically present. Your pain has significant research value. That's when I understood. This thing wasn't just stealing my son, it was going to make me watch. Study my suffering like a scientist taking notes. And if I refuse? Then Jason's consciousness ends tonight, and I perfect my impersonation through trial and error using social interactions. He will be gone, and you will never know the exact moment he faded. I thought you would prefer to prolong his existence, even in this state. It was right. God help me, it was right. How many of you are there? Many. We exist in the deep places, cracks in your world where the boundaries are thin. Thermal vents, deep caves, tectonic fissures. We are drawn to consciousness that touches these spaces. You call them missing persons in wilderness areas. We call them opportunities for study. My mind raced through news stories. Hikers vanished in Alaska every year. Experienced outdoors people who disappeared without a trace. Search and rescue, finding no evidence, no bodies, no explanations. How many of them came back different? I need time to think, I said. You have time. But know this, Jason is watching through his own eyes, trapped, unable to speak or move. He is crying inside. He wants his father to save him. Can you save him, Richard Morrison? Or can you only prolong his awareness of being taken? The thing wearing my son's face stood up from the table, walked upstairs, and went to bed. I sat at that kitchen table until dawn, trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't kill it that was killing Jason. I couldn't take him to a hospital. They'd think he had a psychological condition, maybe lock him up, and I'd lose access to him. I couldn't tell anyone the truth because who would believe me? All I could do was watch my son disappear day by day while something else learned to be human. Sunday morning, I made a plan. If I couldn't save Jason, maybe I could save him from the worst of it. Maybe I could give him back his body, even if it meant sacrificing mine. I waited until the thing went into the living room. I went to my gun safe and pulled out my .44 Magnum. I loaded it, walked downstairs, and pointed it at my own head. The thing looked up from the book it was reading, one of Jason's picture books, studying the images. "What are you doing?" it asked. "You wanted to study human emotions? Study this. Jason is watching right now. He sees his father about to kill himself. He knows it's because of him, because something took him and his dad couldn't stop it. That guilt will destroy whatever's left of him. You'll have a consciousness in there, but it'll be shattered, useless for your research. The thing stood up. For the first time, it looked uncertain. You would traumatize your own child to end this? I would free him from watching you take everything while he's powerless. We stood there in my living room, the gun against my temple. There's an alternative, it said slowly. A trade. What trade? I can transfer to you. The process is the same. Jason will be freed. You will take his place. Do it. You understand what you're accepting? You will be conscious but powerless, trapped in your own body. Watching me live your life, raise your son, use your memories and skills. Jason will be free, but you will suffer what he would have suffered. I understand. The thing walked over to me. It placed both of Jason's small hands on either side of my head. I felt something cold slide into my skull, like ice water flooding my brain. The room spun. I heard screaming, my own voice, animal and desperate, then darkness, then awareness. I was on my living room floor. Jason was kneeling next to me, crying. Dad? Dad? Are you okay? I tried to answer. My mouth moved without my permission. I am fine, Jason. Just felt dizzy for a moment. That wasn't me speaking. That was my voice, but not my words. Jason threw his arms around me, around my body, and sobbed. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I looked into that crack. It got inside me, and I couldn't stop it, and I couldn't tell you. And, shh. My hand patted his back with mechanical precision. You are safe now. Everything will be fine. But I was screaming inside, trapped, aware of everything but controlling nothing. My body stood up. You should rest, Jason. It has been a difficult weekend. Are you sure you're okay, Dad? Yes. Go to your room and play. I will make us lunch soon. Jason went upstairs, still crying. My body walked to the kitchen and began making sandwiches with that same methodical pattern. Bread, then cheese, then meat, then the second slice of bread. That was 3 weeks ago. I'm still here, still aware, still screaming inside my own head where no one can hear. The thing has been studying me. It moves through my life, going to parent-teacher conferences, helping Jason with homework, working my remote guide consultation job. To everyone else, I seem normal, maybe a little more serious, a little less warm, but people chalk that up to stress. Jason knows something's wrong. He watches me with worried eyes. Sometimes he asks questions that the thing answers slightly wrong, referencing memories it doesn't quite have right, using phrases I'd never use. Last night, Jason came to my room, my body's room. I was lying in bed, and the thing had relaxed its control enough that I could see and hear clearly. Dad, Jason whispered from the doorway. Can I ask you something? Yes. Are you still in there? My body didn't answer. For a moment, I felt the thing's surprise. It hadn't expected that question. I'm scared, Jason said. You seem like Dad, but also not like Dad, and sometimes I see you looking at me the way that thing looked at people, like you're studying us. I am your father, my voice said. Then what's our secret knock, the one for your office door? Silence. The thing didn't know. I'd never used it since the transfer. Jason started crying. Something took you too, didn't it? Just like it took me. My body sat up. Your father chose this, Jason, to free you. He is still aware, still present, still loving you, but he cannot control this body anymore. Jason ran to the bed and grabbed my hand. Dad, if you're in there, I'm going to get you out, I promise. I don't know how, but I promise. The thing allowed my hand to squeeze his. Just once, the only time it's let me have any control at all. Do not make promises you cannot keep, Jason, it said. Your father would not want you to suffer trying to save him. That was 2 days ago. Since then, the thing has kept tighter control. I can't move anything, can't even squeeze Jason's hand. But I'm still here, still fighting. At night, when the thing thinks I've faded, I'm pushing against the walls of my own mind, testing the barriers, looking for weaknesses in its control. And I've found something. The thing keeps a journal. Digital files hidden on my computer, written in symbols I don't understand, but with enough English mixed in to get the meaning. Subject, Richard Morrison. Integration progress. 40% complete. Subject displays unusual resistance to assimilation. Original consciousness maintains coherence despite sustained suppression. Recommend extending observation period to study resistance mechanisms. 40%. It's only taken 40% of me. 60% is still fighting. And I've realized something else. The thing made a mistake. It transferred to me to study a parent's sacrifice, but it didn't account for something. A parent's rage. It knows love now, from Jason's memories and mine. It's starting to understand grief, watching Jason mourn me while I'm still present. But it doesn't understand fury yet. The cold, focused fury of a father whose child was hurt, who will tear apart anything and everything to protect that child, consequences be damned. It's going to learn. I'm writing this during a moment when its control slipped just for a few seconds, while it was focused on answering one of Jason's questions about homework. I'm hiding it in a folder labeled Tax Documents 2019, where it won't think to look. If you're reading this, it means something happened. Maybe I found a way to fight back. Maybe I lost. But if you hike in Alaska, or any deep wilderness, and you find a crack in the earth that smells wrong, that has mist rising from it even when it shouldn't, that makes your hindbrain scream danger, walk away. Don't look into it. Don't let your children near it. Because something down there is watching, waiting, studying. And if you come back different, if someone you love comes back wrong, it might already be too late. My name is Richard Morrison. I'm a wilderness guide trapped in my own body. But I'm still here, still fighting. And I'm teaching this thing something it didn't expect to learn. Humans don't just love our children. We go to war for them. My name is Isaiah Chen, and I've been a professional wilderness photographer for 12 years. I've documented grizzly migration patterns in Denali, spent solo weeks in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and photographed the northern lights from above the Arctic Circle. I've dealt with hypothermia, frostbite, and a close encounter with a coastal brown bear that still gives me nightmares. Alaska is the last true wilderness in America, and I thought I understood its dangers. But what happened last September in the Chugach Mountains made me realize that some things in Alaska aren't natural at all. I specialize in documenting abandoned trails, old mining routes, forgotten homesteader paths, places that haven't seen regular human traffic in decades. My photos have been featured in National Geographic and Alaska magazine. I make good money doing this because I'm willing to hike alone into places most people won't go. I carry a satellite GPS, 2 emergency beacons, 10 days of freeze-dried food, bear spray, and enough camera equipment to document everything I see. I'm not some tourist with a phone camera. I know Alaska, and I respect it. The assignment came from a documentary producer in Anchorage. She wanted photos of the old Caribou Ridge Trail, a remote route in the Chugach Range that had been closed since 1996 after 4 hikers vanished over a 3-year period. Alaska state troopers searched for weeks but never found bodies, equipment, or any trace of the missing people. The official conclusion blamed the trail's poor maintenance and Alaska's harsh weather. Seemed reasonable. People die in the Alaskan wilderness every year. Exposure, falls, bear attacks, drowning in glacier-fed rivers. The land doesn't forgive mistakes. I started my hike on September 12th, a Thursday. Weather forecast looked perfect, clear skies, temperatures in the low 50s, no storms predicted for 5 days. I reached the old trailhead around 10 in the morning. The wooden sign was still there, half buried in fireweed and Devil's Club. Caribou Ridge Trail, 15 miles. Closed by order Alaska State Parks. The first 4 miles were tough but manageable. The trail was overgrown with alder and dwarf birch, barely visible in places, winding through dense spruce forest before climbing into alpine tundra. I stopped every half mile to photograph the landscape. Massive peaks dusted with early snow, valleys filled with golden tundra, the kind of raw beauty that makes you understand why people move to Alaska. Perfect stuff for the documentary. That's when I found the first cairn. Trail cairns are common in Alaska, stacked rocks that mark routes above treeline where wooden signs don't last. But this one was different. It stood about 4 feet tall next to a flat boulder, and when I got closer, I realized it wasn't made of rocks. It was made of bones. Human bones. Long bones, femurs, tibius, radius, and ulna had been stacked vertically to create a tower. Smaller bones, fingers, ribs, vertebrae filled the gaps, creating a dense, interlocking structure. At the top sat a human skull, facing back down the trail toward the trailhead. The entire thing was weathered gray-brown, like it had been exposed to Alaska's freeze-thaw cycles for years. I immediately pulled out my satellite phone. No signal. The screen showed full battery but couldn't acquire any satellites. I tried my primary emergency beacon, nothing. The power light came on, but when I pressed the SOS button, no confirmation signal. I tried my backup beacon. Same problem. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my camera. I took dozens of photos from every angle, wide shots showing the cairn's position, close-ups of how the bones were stacked, detail shots of the skull. My Nikon worked perfectly, which gave me some comfort. At least I'd have evidence. I should have turned back immediately. Every wilderness survival course teaches the same lesson. When multiple systems fail simultaneously, abort the mission. But I kept thinking about the assignment, the money, my reputation for completing difficult shoots. And part of me, the stupid, curious part, wanted to know what this thing was doing here. I told myself it had to be fake. Some macabre art project using replica bones from a Halloween store. Alaska attracts weird people, and plenty of them have too much time on their hands. I kept hiking. 40 minutes later, I found the second cairn. This one was bigger, maybe 6 feet tall with more bones. The skull at the top faced sideways, staring into the forest. And carved into the skull's forehead, deep enough to still be visible under years of weathering, was a single word. Closer. My stomach dropped. These weren't replicas. The bones were real. I could see the porous texture of aged bone, the way weathering had etched patterns into the surface, the yellow-brown staining from years of exposure. And that carving was old, done with something like a knife or chisel, the edges of the letters smoothed by time. I tried the satellite phone again. The screen flickered, showing my position, jumping randomly across the map even though I was standing still. I powered it down and back up. The GPS coordinates kept changing. 1 second I was at my actual location, the next I was showing up 5 miles east, then 3 miles north. Completely useless. I pulled out my backup compass. The needle spun lazily, rotating through all directions, never settling. I tapped it, shook it, nothing changed. That's when I heard the sound. Clicking. 2 pieces of bone tapping together, slow, deliberate, rhythmic, click, click, click. Coming from somewhere in the forest to my right. I froze, listening. The clicking stopped. The silence that followed was absolute. No birds, no wind through the trees, no rustle of small animals. Just dead, heavy quiet that pressed against my eardrums. Then the clicking started again, but from a different direction. Behind me now, closer than before. I started walking fast, following what I hoped was the trail. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my breathing controlled. Panic kills people in the wilderness faster than any predator. I'd seen it, hikers who freaked out and ran blindly until they were hopelessly lost or injured. I wouldn't be that person. The trail climbed steadily into alpine tundra, the trees thinning out until I was hiking through low shrubs and lichen-covered rocks. The open terrain should have made me feel safer, but instead, I felt exposed, vulnerable. I found the third cairn after another 30 minutes of hard hiking. This one was massive, over 8 feet tall, made from what must have been dozens of skeletons. The bones were arranged in a spiral pattern that twisted upward, complex and deliberate, almost beautiful in a horrible way. The skull at the top had no lower jaw, and something had been placed inside the cranium. I approached slowly, every nerve screaming at me to run. Inside the skull were photographs, dozens of them, weathered and faded, protected from rain by the skull itself. I pulled one out with trembling hands. It showed a young woman in 1,990 seconds. Hiking gear, bright purple jacket, fanny pack, blonde hair pulled back, smiling at the camera with mountains behind her. On the back, written in faded ink, Jennifer Hawthorne, July 1994. I pulled out another. A middle-aged man with a graying beard, holding trekking poles. Michael Cross, September 1995. Another. A couple in their 20s, arms around each other. David and Sarah Kim, August 1996. These were the missing hikers. These photographs had been taken by whoever killed them. The clicking started again, much closer. I spun around and saw him standing about 40 feet away, partially hidden behind an outcropping of rock. He was old, maybe late 60s or early 70s, but he moved like someone much younger, with the easy confidence of a man who'd spent his entire life in the wilderness. He was tall and lean, wearing homemade clothing that looked like it had been stitched together from animal hides, canvas, and modern technical fabrics scavenged from his victims. His hair was long and gray, tied back from a face that had been weathered by decades of Alaskan weather. His hands were covered in scars, the kind you get from skinning animals and working with knives, and he was holding 2 bones, clicking them together slowly. Click, click, click. We stared at each other for a long moment. He didn't seem surprised to see me. He looked pleased, like a craftsman admiring someone who'd come to view his work. "You're making good time," he said. His voice was calm, conversational, with the slight accent of someone who'd grown up in Alaska. "Most people take another hour to reach this marker." "I'm leaving," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I have people expecting me back. They know exactly where I am." He smiled, showing yellowed teeth. "No, you don't. And no, they don't. You told your producer you'd be out of contact for 5 days, minimum. I heard you on the phone yesterday at the motel in Girdwood. You were complaining about the rate they charged you." My blood turned to ice. He'd been watching me before I even reached the trailhead. "You're jamming my equipment," I said, understanding suddenly. "Satellite phone, GPS, beacons. You've got some kind of military jammer." "Russian military surplus," he said, still smiling. "Bought it in Anchorage 3 years ago from a guy selling Cold War equipment. Works on everything: satellite signals, GPS, emergency beacons, even cell phones, if anyone's stupid enough to expect coverage out here. Cost me $8,000, but it's been worth every penny." He clicked the bones together again. "I was Alaska State Park Service for 32 years. Started in 1982, retired in 2014. I knew these trails better than anyone. Still do. Caribou Ridge was always my favorite. Remote enough that people come alone, difficult enough that they're exhausted when they reach the alpine zone, and isolated enough that nobody expects quick rescue." "The missing hikers," I said. "You killed them." "I preserved them," he corrected, his tone patient, like a teacher with a slow student. "The wilderness takes most people anyway: hypothermia, falls, bear attacks, drowning. They die alone and forgotten, their bodies scattered and picked apart by animals. I give them something better. I make them permanent. I make them art. I make them part of the landscape forever." He started walking toward me, still clicking the bones. Not fast, just a slow, steady approach. "I've been doing this for 28 years. Since 1996. 23 people, all preserved, all arranged in the pattern. The spiral represents the journey starting from the world of the living, spiraling inward towards something greater." "You're insane," I said, backing away. "I'm patient," he said. "That's different. It takes weeks to properly preserve a body, months to arrange the bones correctly, years to build something beautiful. Most people don't have that kind of dedication anymore." I ran. I sprinted across the tundra, my camera bag slamming against my back, my lungs burning in the thin alpine air. Behind me, I could hear him following, not running, just walking at that same steady pace, clicking those bones together. He didn't need to run. He knew I couldn't escape. He'd been hunting these mountains for nearly 3 decades. I ran for maybe 20 minutes before my legs started cramping. I'd been hiking for hours already, climbing thousands of feet in elevation, and now I was sprinting at altitude. My body was shutting down. That's when I realized the pattern. The bone cairns weren't scattered randomly along the trail. They were arranged in a spiral that led deeper and deeper into the mountains, each one positioned at a specific point. And I'd been following the spiral inward, getting closer to the center with every step. I stopped running and looked around, trying to orient myself. The sun was at my back, which meant I was heading roughly northeast. The trailhead was southwest. But between me and safety were miles of trackless tundra, river crossings, and the man who'd been killing hikers in these mountains since before I graduated high school. Then I saw it maybe a quarter mile ahead, up a steep slope, the center of the spiral. It was enormous. A structure made from hundreds of bones, spiraling upward at least 15 feet, arranged with such precision that it looked almost architectural. At its base, I could see tools, saws, knives, bundled sinew, containers that might have held preservatives, and photographs, so many photographs, arranged in a circle around the structure like offerings at a shrine. That's where you belong. The old man's voice came from behind me, closer than I expected. Right at the center. The spiral is almost complete, just needs one more. I pulled out my camera and started shooting. Fast, frantic, hitting the shutter button over and over. Wide shots of the structure, close-ups of the tools, detail shots of the photographs, multiple photos of his face as he approached. My camera's flash fired again and again in the bright alpine sunlight. He stopped walking. The clicking stopped. "What are you doing?" "Documenting," I said, my voice shaking but determined. "That's my job. I document things. And this camera has built-in GPS tagging. Every photo I take is embedded with coordinates, timestamps, and metadata. They upload automatically to a cloud server through a cellular connection works, even when satellite phones don't. If I don't deactivate the emergency protocol within 12 hours, the entire archive gets sent to Alaska State Troopers, the FBI, and my emergency contacts. Complete bullshit. My camera didn't have cellular capability, nothing does in the Alaskan wilderness. But it had GPS tagging when the GPS was working, and I was betting he didn't know enough about modern camera technology to call my bluff. He stared at me, his weathered face unreadable. "You're lying." "Maybe," I said, still photographing. "But are you willing to risk it? You said you were State Park Service. That means there are records. Employment history, ID badges, retirement paperwork, personnel photos. Once the troopers see these pictures, they'll run facial recognition. They'll figure out who you are. They'll search these mountains with dogs, helicopters, and ground-penetrating radar. They'll find every single one of your cairns. 28 victims, you said? That's 28 sets of remains that can be DNA tested and matched to missing persons cases. 28 families who'll finally know what happened. Your entire life's work, torn down and cataloged as evidence." I could see him calculating, weighing the risk. His hand tightened on the bones. "They'll study you," I continued, my finger still on the shutter button. "Psychologists, criminologists, FBI profilers. They'll pick apart everything you did. You won't be an artist. You'll be a case study. Another sick fuck who killed people in the woods. They'll compare you to Robert Hansen, the butcher baker who hunted women from a plane. You'll be infamous, but not how you want. They'll tear down your spirals and dump all those bones in evidence bags. Nothing will be beautiful anymore." For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across his face. I ran again, but this time I ran perpendicular to the spiral's path, cutting straight across the tundra instead of following the trail. My wilderness photography training kicked in. I started navigating by the sun's position and the landscape features I'd photographed on the way up. Photographers learn to read light, to remember exactly where the sun was at specific times. It was 2:47 p.m. according to my watch. The sun had been at my left shoulder when I'd photographed the second cairn, which meant it was roughly south-southwest. I needed to head that direction. I ran, walked, stumbled down slopes covered in loose scree. My lungs burned, my legs shook, but I kept moving, constantly checking the sun's position, looking for landmarks, a distinctive rock formation I'd photographed, a small tarn that had appeared in the background of one of my shots. Behind me, I heard shouting. The old man had gone back to his central spiral, I realized. He was probably destroying it, dismantling his life's work to eliminate evidence. My bluff had worked. After an hour of desperate navigation, I saw something familiar, a cluster of spruce trees with a distinctive lightning-struck trunk I'd photographed that morning. I was back on the trail, above the tree line but heading in the right direction. I pushed myself harder, half running, half falling down the trail. The sun was getting lower. I had maybe 3 hours of daylight left. And then, impossibly, I heard an engine. A helicopter. The distinctive thwop 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 of rotor blades echoing off the valley walls. I stumbled into a small clearing and waved my arms frantically. The helicopter, an Alaska State Troopers search and rescue bird, circled once, then began descending. Later, I found out what happened. My producer had gotten worried when I'd called from Girdwood, complaining about the motel rate, but then never called again after reaching the trailhead. She knew I always checked in via satellite phone once I made camp, even if it was just a quick text message. When she didn't hear from me by midnight on my first day, she contacted Alaska State Troopers. They'd launched a search at first light, flying the most likely routes. Pure luck that they spotted me. Pure luck that I'd made it to a clearing. Pure luck that I was still alive. I told them everything as the helicopter flew toward Anchorage. The trooper sitting next to me, a veteran named Sergeant McKay, listened to my story with an increasingly skeptical expression. But when I showed him the photos on my camera, his face went pale. "Jesus Christ," he whispered, scrolling through the images. "How many did you say there were?" He said 23. But I counted at least 28 victims' photos at the central cairn. McKay got on the radio immediately. Within an hour, they'd mobilized a full search and rescue operation. Dogs, additional helicopters, a ground team with equipment for high-altitude recovery. They found the first 3 cairns exactly where my GPS-tagged photos showed they should be. The bones were real human remains that had been exposed to the elements for years. Forensic anthropologists confirmed it within hours, but they never found the central spiral. The coordinates in my photos led them to a flat area of alpine tundra, with no bone structure, no tools, no photographs, just empty ground with faint disturbances suggesting something large had been recently removed. They never found the old man. Alaska State Parks records showed 13 employees who'd worked the Chugach region between 1982 and 2014. Troopers interviewed all of them. None matched my description. 2 had died of natural causes. The others had solid alibis and no connection to the missing hikers. The military-grade jammer was never found. Without it, my story about equipment failure became unreliable witness testimony, complicated by altitude and stress. After 2 weeks of searching, Alaska State Troopers officially classified my report as credible threat, insufficient evidence for prosecution. The 3 cairns I documented were dismantled, and the remains were sent to the FBI lab in Quantico for DNA analysis. They eventually matched bones from 5 different individuals, 3 of them connected to missing persons cases from the 1990 seconds. But that was it. 5 victims identified out of 28 claimed. No suspect, no arrests. Case remains open. The forensic anthropologist who examined my photos called me 6 months later. She'd been analyzing the bone arrangement patterns in the cairns. "This is going to sound insane," she said, "but the spiral structure you photographed shows sophisticated understanding of anatomy, preservation techniques, and weight distribution. Whoever made these studied osteology. This isn't random. This is someone with advanced medical or mortuary training, or someone who's been doing this so long they've become an expert through practice." "How long?" I asked. "Based on the weathering patterns visible in your photos?" The oldest bones in that first cairn had been exposed to the elements for at least 25 years. Maybe longer. I still have all the photos. Backed up in 7 different locations now, 3 cloud services, 2 external hard drives, my computer, and a USB drive I keep in a safety deposit box. I've shown them to law enforcement agencies across Alaska. Most thank me for the documentation, but tell me there's insufficient evidence for ongoing investigation. Alaska Magazine published a sanitized version of my story. They called the cairns disturbing illegal art installations made from animal bones, even though the forensic reports proved they were human. The documentary producer dropped the project entirely, said it was too controversial, and she didn't want to encourage copycat crimes. I don't photograph wilderness anymore. I shoot weddings now, corporate events, senior portraits, safe, indoor work, where the worst thing that can happen is someone blinks in the photos. I moved to Seattle 6 months after the incident. Couldn't stay in Alaska. Every mountain range started looking like a hiding place. Every remote trail made me think about what might be waiting at the end of it. But 3 weeks ago, I received a package at my Seattle apartment. No return address. Postmarked from Anchorage. Inside was a single weathered photograph. It showed me on the Caribou Ridge Trail, taken from behind, my camera bag visible, my orange jacket bright against the tundra. The angle suggested it was taken with a telephoto lens, maybe 200 yards away. On the back, written in faded ink that matched the writing on the other photographs. Isaiah Chen, September 2024. The spiral continues. I filed a police report. Seattle PD contacted Alaska State Troopers. They said they'd look into it but reminded me that sending photographs isn't illegal. I've installed a security system in my apartment. Cameras at every entrance. Motion sensors, Smart locks. I check the feeds constantly, and last night, at 2:47 a.m., the exact time I'd started my escape from the spiral, I heard it, clicking, two pieces of bone tapping together, slow, rhythmic, deliberate, click, 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 coming from outside my bedroom window. 4th floor. No balcony. No fire escape. I checked the security camera footage. Nothing. Just the empty street below, cars passing, rain falling. But when I opened my curtains this morning, I found something wedged into the window frame. A small human finger bone, carved with a single word. Closer. I'm writing this from a motel in Portland. I drove through the night. I don't know where I'm going next. Canada, maybe. Mexico. Somewhere, far from Alaska, far from mountains, far from places where a man can hunt for 28 years without anyone stopping him. But I keep hearing that clicking sound. In parking lots, outside motel windows, in the distance when I stop for gas. And I keep thinking about what the forensic anthropologist said. Whoever made these has been doing this so long they've become an expert through practice. 28 victims in Alaska. But what if Alaska was just the beginning? What if the spiral doesn't end? I don't open curtains anymore. I don't sleep near windows. And I never, ever hike alone. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if any of that matters. Because the spiral continues. And I think I'm still walking it. My name is Derek Moss. I was a wildlife biologist for 11 years before what happened in August 2023 destroyed my career, my health, and everything I thought I knew about the natural world. I have a PhD in entomology from University of Alaska Fairbanks, 7 years of field research across some of the most remote places on Earth: Amazon rainforests, Australian outback, Canadian wilderness. I've been alone with dangerous wildlife for weeks at a time. I thought I'd seen nature at its most brutal and unforgiving. But what I discovered during my solo research expedition in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge wasn't just brutal, it was impossible. And it's still out there, growing stronger every day. The official report says I suffered severe allergic reactions to indigenous arthropod species and mild hypothermia-induced hallucinations. My own government is covering this up, but I kept detailed notes. I have photographs, and I have the scars. Most importantly, I have the lab results that prove what I found shouldn't exist. August 7th, 2023. I was dropped off by helicopter at coordinates 69.4 degrees north, 144.8 degrees west in ANWR's coastal plain. My mission: document climate-induced insect migration patterns. Global warming was pushing southern species northward into territories where they'd never survived before. Simple documentation work, routine science. I packed for 12 days completely alone. No guides, no research assistants, no backup. Just me, my sampling equipment, and enough supplies to survive 2 weeks in one of Earth's most isolated ecosystems. The nearest human being was 150 miles away, no cell service. My only lifeline was an iridium satellite beacon for genuine emergencies. The weather was perfect for Arctic August. Daytime temps in the low 50 seconds, nights dropping to the 30 seconds, clear skies, no precipitation forecast. The permafrost beneath my feet stretched down 300 feet, unbroken for 10,000 years. Nothing could dig deep enough to establish permanent colonies in this environment. That's what I believed. For 3 days, everything went exactly as planned. I hiked roughly 8 miles per day through the brown-green tundra, collecting standard Arctic specimens. Mosquitoes, crane flies, a few hardy beetles. Nothing unusual, nothing that shouldn't have been there. My GPS showed I was making excellent progress along my planned route. Sample containers were filling with exactly the insects I expected to find. I was actually ahead of schedule. On August 10th, day 4, I discovered something that shouldn't exist. I was hiking through a shallow valley between 2 ridges when I saw it rising from the tundra like a small mountain. An ant mound. 8 feet tall, maybe 15 feet across at the base, constructed from dark soil mixed with organic material I couldn't immediately identify. Here's what made my blood go cold. Ants can't build permanent colonies this far north. The permafrost layer sits just 3 feet underground. You cannot dig through permanently frozen earth with mandibles and legs. It's physically impossible. But there it was. I approached slowly, camera ready. The mound was crawling with activity. Hundreds of ants moving with purpose, carrying materials, entering and exiting tunnel systems, patrolling the perimeter in organized formations. These weren't normal ants. Each specimen was nearly an inch long, roughly the size of my thumbnail. Their coloration was deep black, almost oil-like. Their heads were disproportionately large, mandibles oversized and serrated. Under my field magnifier, I could see their compound eyes were unusually developed, bigger, and more complex than any ant species in my taxonomic databases. I collected 23 specimens in a reinforced plastic container, photographed the mound from multiple angles, and documented GPS coordinates. The ants were extremely aggressive during collection, attempting to bite through my heavy leather gloves. Several left visible scratch marks in the material. That evening, I set up camp half a mile from the discovery site. I was excited, honestly. This could be a major find, an unknown species adapting to Arctic conditions through rapid climate-induced evolution. I spent 2 hours that night examining specimens under my portable microscope and recording detailed morphological observations. Journal entry, August 10, 11:47 p.m. Unknown Formicidae species, possibly Camponotus genus, but significantly larger than any documented variety. Head width, 4.2 millimeters. Total length 24 millimeters. Mandible structure suggests carnivorous diet rather than typical omnivorous feeding. Compound eyes show 847 individual ommatidia, nearly double typical ant species. Will attempt genetic sampling tomorrow. Then I went to sleep. I woke up at 2:33 a.m. to a scratching sound. At first, I assumed it was an Arctic fox or ground squirrel investigating my campsite. But when I switched on my flashlight and checked the surroundings, I found something that made my stomach drop. The sample container was sitting exactly where I'd left it, on my equipment table. But the lid was missing. The sides showed clear bite marks, parallel gouges that could only have been made by something with powerful mandibles. The ants had chewed through industrial-grade plastic and escaped. But that wasn't the worst discovery. Leading away from my tent, disappearing into the darkness, was a perfect column formation of ants. Hundreds of them marching in disciplined single-file lines toward something I couldn't see. Not wandering randomly like escaped specimens. Moving with military precision toward a specific destination. I followed the column for about 30 feet with my flashlight before losing my nerve. The ants showed no fear of the light, no deviation from their march. They ignored my presence completely, focused entirely on their objective. I spent the rest of the night checking every piece of equipment for contamination. Found 3 dead ants in my sleeping bag, 2 more in my food supplies. I sealed everything in airtight containers and convinced myself the problem was contained. Journal entry, August 11th, 6:15 a.m. Specimens escaped during night. Plastic container compromised by mandible damage. Need to reassess containment protocols for future collection. Ants show unusual organizational behavior. Marching in formation rather than typical scattered foraging patterns. I broke camp early and hiked 8 miles northwest, putting significant distance between myself and the original discovery site. I wanted clean sampling areas uncontaminated by my previous work. But that night, they found me. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to movement against my sleeping bag. My flashlight revealed dozens of ants crawling across the fabric exterior. The same species, same size, same black coloration, same oversized mandibles. Impossible, unless they'd followed me 8 miles through unmarked wilderness. I killed 17 of them and spent an hour checking every piece of gear for infiltration. Found 2 more inside my equipment bags, despite having sealed everything after the previous incident. When morning came, I discovered something that should have been impossible. 10 yards from my tent, where I was absolutely certain no structure had existed the night before, stood a small ant mound, only 2 feet tall but unmistakably built by the same species using identical construction techniques. They had followed me 8 miles through trackless tundra and established a new colony overnight. I approached the mound with my magnifying glass and made a discovery that still gives me nightmares. The dark material I'd assumed was Arctic soil wasn't soil at all. It was pulverized bone mixed with organic matter. Tiny white fragments throughout the structure revealed themselves to be skulls, rib cages, and leg bones from small mammals, all stripped completely clean of flesh. These ants weren't scavengers feeding on natural deaths, they were active predators. Journal entry, August 12, 8:42 a.m. Ants demonstrated impossible navigation capability, tracked location across 8+ miles of unmarked terrain. New colony construction overnight indicates rapid expansion capability. Structural analysis reveals bone composition rather than soil. Dietary assessment. Obligate carnivores. Not typical omnivorous behavior. I hiked another 5 miles south and made camp near a stream, hoping the water barrier might provide protection. But I had a horrible certainty about what I'd find the next morning. I was right. At 11:43 p.m., I watched them come. Through my tent's mesh window, I observed hundreds of ants approaching across the tundra, not scattered foraging, organized military formations. Some moved in flanking patterns to the left and right of my campsite. Others advanced directly toward my position. A third group circled completely around my tent, cutting off potential escape routes. They were using coordinated tactical movement. Like human soldiers, I spent the entire night killing them with my boots, tent stakes, and camping knife. For every ant I eliminated, 2 more appeared from the darkness. When dawn finally broke, I counted 73 corpses scattered around my tent. But here's what nearly broke my sanity. During the night, I'd watched other ants systematically retrieve their dead. They carried away casualties with the same military precision they'd used to attack. Body recovery operations. Organized retreat with wounded. These creatures were demonstrating intelligence no insect should possess. Journal entry, August 13th, 7:26 a.m. Ants exhibit coordinated group tactics, including flanking maneuvers, perimeter control, and casualty evacuation. Behavioral complexity suggests neural organization far exceeding typical arthropod capability. This violates everything we know about insect neurology. On August 13th, I made a decision that nearly cost my life. I followed their retreat path to find their main base of operations. What I discovered defied biological possibility. The main colony wasn't just a mound, it was an entire hillside honeycombed with tunnel systems covering almost 2 acres. Millions of ants moved across the surface in complex traffic patterns. Supply lines brought food from hunting grounds. Construction teams expanded tunnel networks. Patrol units maintained perimeter security. And at the center, visible through a partially collapsed tunnel section, was the queen. She was the size of a medium dog, her abdomen grotesquely distended from continuous egg production. But her head was wrong. Massively enlarged, obviously neurologically developed far beyond any known ant species. She had eyes, not just compound eyes, large, complex optical organs that tracked movement with obvious intelligence. When she looked at me, I saw something no insect should possess: conscious awareness. She was studying me the same way I studied my specimens. I watched worker ants bring her offerings. A paralyzed Arctic fox, still breathing, being consumed slowly over several hours. The queen examined each piece of food before accepting it, making obvious quality judgments. Strategic decisions about nutrition and resource allocation. But the most terrifying observation came when she looked directly at me again. Those compound eyes followed my movement, calculated my distance, assessed my threat level. She was intelligent, really, truly intelligent. Journal entry, August 13th, 4:33 p.m. Queen specimen shows neurological development incompatible with arthropod anatomy. Cranial enlargement suggests brain mass 40-50x normal ant proportions. Behavioral observation confirms decision-making capability and strategic planning. This represents impossible evolutionary leap. That night was supposed to be my 11th day in the wilderness. My scheduled pickup was 24 hours away. I just had to survive one more night. I didn't make it. I woke up on August 14th, surrounded by walls. During the night, while I slept, the ants had constructed barriers around my tent. 3-foot-high ramparts made of soil, bone fragments, and organic matter. I was enclosed inside what could only be described as a construction site. They weren't trying to kill me, they were trying to capture me. I cut through the barriers with my knife and ran. Behind me, the sound of pursuit wasn't random, chittering, or chaotic movement. It was the coordinated thunder of thousands of tiny legs moving in synchronized formation. They chased me for 2 miles, but not randomly. They herded me, cut off certain escape routes, forced me toward specific directions, always pushing me back toward the main colony. The queen wanted me alive, wanted to study me the way she studied the paralyzed animals her workers brought her. I wasn't prey. I was a specimen for her collection. Satellite phone recording, August 14th, 10:47 a.m. Mayday, Mayday, this is Dr. Derek Moss, research permit ANWR 2023847. I need immediate emergency extraction, coordinates 69.3 degrees north, 144.9 degrees west. I'm being pursued by, I know this sounds impossible, but I'm being hunted by an organized insect colony showing coordinated predatory behavior. They've been tracking me for days. I have evidence of impossible species development. Please, I need extraction, now. Dr. Moss, this is Rescue Coordination Center. Can you clarify the nature of your emergency? Are you experiencing medical distress? No medical emergency. I'm being hunted by intelligent ants, millions of them. They're trying to capture me alive. ETA on extraction? Dr. Moss, we're dispatching helicopter rescue. ETA, approximately 6 hours. Find defensible position and maintain radio contact. 6 hours? I don't know if I can. They're learning. Every time I try something, they adapt. They're getting smarter. Connection terminated. I reached a riverbank and jumped into water too deep for the ants to cross. For maybe 30 seconds, I thought I was safe. Then I looked at the opposite shore. They were already there, hundreds of them lined up along the bank, having anticipated my escape route and positioned advance scouts. They had predicted my behavior and moved to intercept. I was trapped in the middle of a freezing stream, surrounded by an intelligent enemy that had outmaneuvered me. I activated my emergency beacon and prepared to survive 6 hours until rescue arrived. Using my camping stove fuel, I created fire barriers on the riverbank. My sample preservation chemicals, spirks, formaldehyde, ethanol, hydrochloric acid, became improvised weapons. Every time they probed my defenses, I drove them back with fire and toxic chemicals. But they learned from each failed attempt. If fire stopped them on the left, they'd try a different approach on the right. If chemicals worked in one area, they'd avoid that zone and test elsewhere. They adapted in real time, like a computer program running different scenarios until one succeeded. The most terrifying aspect was their organization. Different groups attempted different tactics simultaneously. Some tried to tunnel under my fire barriers. Others climbed onto floating debris to approach from the water. Still others found elevated positions and attempted to drop down from above. They were problem-solving, using tools, showing creativity. Journal entry, August 14th, 2:18 p.m. Final entry. Ants demonstrate advanced problem-solving, tool use, and adaptive learning. Multiple simultaneous tactical approaches suggest distributed intelligence and command structure. This is not possible according to current understanding of arthropod neurology. If these capabilities are genetic rather than environmental, implications for Arctic ecosystem are catastrophic. The helicopter appeared on the horizon at 4:23 p.m. I was covered in ant bites, my left leg completely numb from accumulated venom exposure, hands bleeding from fighting with improvised weapons. As we lifted off, I looked down at the colony one final time. The ants were building something new, a tall, narrow structure reaching toward the sky like a tower. They had observed the helicopter and were already adapting, trying to reach flying objects. The pilot saw it too. Jesus Christ, what is that thing? Evolution, I told him. Accelerated evolution. I was extracted on August 14th with over 200 documented ant bites covering my body. The venom had caused permanent nerve damage to my left leg. I walk with a limp now and probably always will. My collected specimens were sent to laboratories across the country. DNA analysis revealed results that should have been impossible. Completely unknown genetic structure with no matches to any documented ant species in global databases. My photographs showed ant behaviors that violated fundamental principles of entomology. Coordinated hunting strategies, strategic colony placement, sophisticated tool use, including the manipulation of small rocks and organic materials for construction purposes. Alaska Wildlife Services dispatched a full investigation team. They found 14 large colonies spread across a 40-mile radius, all centered around what they now call the Queen Hill. They attempted destruction using controlled burns and targeted pesticide application. Total failure. The ants retreated underground during attacks and re-emerged days later, apparently unharmed and potentially stronger. Local caribou populations declined 47% over the following 4 months. Every carcass found had been stripped completely clean, always with fresh ant mounds constructed nearby. I submitted my research for publication. Emergent Intelligence in Arctic Formicidae, Evidence for Rapid Climate-Induced Evolutionary Development. Every major scientific journal rejected it. Reviews called it biologically implausible and inconsistent with established arthropod neurology. I left field research permanently. Now I work in laboratory analysis, examining samples other people collect. My left leg never fully recovered. Permanent nerve damage means chronic pain and limited mobility. But the physical scars aren't the worst part. I monitor reports from Arctic researchers. The ants are spreading. New colonies have been documented over 200 miles from the original site. They're migrating, following prey populations, building what can only be described as an empire. Each new site shows increased organizational complexity and expanded infrastructure. Recent satellite imagery shows the original Queen Hill has grown to over 40 feet in height. Construction continues 24 hours a day. The tower structure now reaches nearly 60 feet, high enough to pose a threat to low-flying aircraft. Climate researchers working in affected areas report equipment failures, supply cache destruction, and coordinated harassment by unusually large and aggressive ant populations. Several research teams have been forced to evacuate when their camps were surrounded by organized insect swarms. The official explanation remains standard insect pest management challenges exacerbated by climate change. But I've seen the intelligence reports. Military entomologists have been quietly studying my specimens. Classified research is being conducted at facilities I'm not authorized to know about. The Pentagon is taking this seriously, even if the scientific community won't. Current estimates suggest the ant colonies will reach populated areas within 5 years. Traditional pest control methods have proven completely ineffective. Fire, poison, physical disruption. Nothing stops them. They adapt too quickly, learn too fast, evolve in real time. In 10 years, maybe sooner, they'll be unstoppable. The permafrost is melting. As Arctic temperatures rise, the frozen barrier that limited their expansion is disappearing. Soon, they'll have access to soil layers that have been locked away for millennia. Underground expansion will accelerate exponentially. I've calculated their spread rate based on current data. Conservative estimates suggest they'll control most of northern Alaska by 2030. Less conservative projections show them reaching the Canadian border by 2035. And they're getting smarter every generation. Recent colonies show architectural innovations not seen in earlier sites. Tool use has evolved from simple rock manipulation to sophisticated construction techniques. Worker specialization has increased dramatically, distinct castes with specific roles and capabilities. Most disturbing, they're beginning to show interest in human technology. Research equipment left unattended for more than a few hours gets systematically dismantled and examined. They're learning about our tools, our methods, our capabilities. When they decide we're a threat rather than just a curiosity, we won't be ready. Rangers note, Dr. Moss provided this testimony in September 2023. On October 15, 2023, he was found dead in his Fairbanks laboratory from apparent cardiac arrest. The official cause of death was listed as stress-induced heart failure related to recent traumatic wilderness experience. His laboratory showed signs of extensive insect activity. Several specimen containers had been opened from the inside. Security footage from the night of his death was corrupted by electromagnetic interference of unknown origin. Alaska state troopers have classified Dr. Moss's final research data. His laboratory has been sealed pending environmental health assessment. The Arctic National Wildlife Refuge remains open to researchers, though permits for the northeastern sections have been suspended indefinitely due to ongoing wildlife management concerns. Official recommendations advise all wilderness personnel to report unusual arthropod activity to park authorities immediately. Under no circumstances should unknown insect species be collected or brought back to populated areas. This account represents Dr. Moss's personal testimony and does not reflect official Alaska Park Service position on Arctic wildlife management. But maybe it should. My name is Christina Wade, and I've been a high school art teacher for 12 years. I teach kids how to see the world differently through their cameras and paintbrushes. I've hiked trails across the Pacific Northwest every summer since college, but this September was my first solo backpacking trip. 6 days in Denali National Park, documenting Alaska's autumn colors for a personal photography project. I thought I knew what wild animals looked like. I thought I understood how they behaved. But what I encountered on that trail changed everything I believed about the boundary between human consciousness and the things that hunt us in the wilderness. This is my account of what really happened to 7 missing hikers in Alaska and why the authorities will never tell you the truth. I planned my route carefully. Denali's backcountry in September should have been perfect. Mild weather, stunning fall colors, and well-marked trails with decent foot traffic. I'm an experienced day hiker, but this was my first multi-day solo trek. I packed light but smart. My Canon DSLR, extra batteries, backup memory cards, standard camping gear, and enough food for 6 days. The park rangers approved my route and camping permits. Everything felt safe and routine. What I didn't know was that I was hiking into an area where 7 people had vanished over 20 years. What I didn't know was that some missing hikers in Alaska don't stay missing. They become something else entirely. September 15th, I started at the Savage River trailhead. Day 1 went perfectly. Clear skies, temperature in the low 50s, and the tundra was exploding with reds and golds. I photographed everything: landscapes, wildlife, close-ups of autumn berries, made camp at my designated site, cooked dinner, uploaded photos to my laptop. The silence was incredible. No cell service, no internet, just me and the wilderness. I felt proud of myself for finally doing this solo trip. But that night, I heard something that still makes my skin crawl. Around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of footsteps circling my tent. Heavy, deliberate steps in a perfect circle, maybe 20 feet out. Not the irregular gait of a bear or the quick scurrying of smaller animals. These footsteps had rhythm, intelligence, purpose. I lay in my sleeping bag, heart pounding, listening to whatever was out there, walk around and around my campsite for nearly an hour. When I finally worked up the courage to look outside, nothing was there. But the grass was pressed down in a perfect circle around my tent. Day 2 started normal. I broke camp at sunrise, hiked toward my next camping spot, about 8 miles north. The trail was well marked, and I saw fresh boot prints from other hikers. But something felt off. The forest was too quiet. No bird calls, no rustling of small animals. Even the wind seemed muted. It was like the wilderness was holding its breath. Around noon, I stopped to photograph a stand of birch trees when I heard heavy footsteps behind me. I turned and saw a massive bull moose about 50 yards away, standing directly on the trail. Moose encounters are common in Alaska. The rules are simple. Back away slowly, give them plenty of space, never get between a moose and its escape route. This bull was huge, probably 7 feet tall at the shoulders, massive antlers spread wide. But he wasn't moving. He just stood there, staring at me. That's when I noticed his eyes. Moose have small, dark eyes. Vacant animal eyes that look through you, not at you. But this moose was looking directly at me with bright blue human eyes. Not just bluish like some animals have, but actual human eyes. Clear blue irises, white sclera, pupils that dilated and contracted like a person's. The moose blinked slowly, deliberately, maintaining eye contact like he was trying to communicate something urgent. The wrongness of it made my stomach lurch. It was like seeing a person's face grafted onto an animal's head. Grotesque and impossible, but undeniably real. I raised my camera instinctively. Through the telephoto lens, I could see the moose's mouth moving. Not chewing cud or making moose sounds, his mouth was forming careful shapes, like someone speaking silently or signing. The movements were too deliberate, too precise to be random. I took several photos, my hands shaking, then backed away carefully. The moose followed me. Not charging, not aggressive, just walking slowly behind me, maintaining that 50-yard distance. Those human eyes never left my face. For the rest of day 2, the moose followed me. When I stopped to rest, he stopped. When I continued hiking, he continued following. When I made camp that evening, he stood at the edge of my campsite perimeter, watching. Those human eyes never left me, and I could see intelligence behind them, not animal cunning, but human awareness, human desperation. The smell hit me that night, a sickly sweet odor like rotting meat mixed with something medicinal, like a hospital morgue. It seemed to come from the moose's direction, carried on the wind. I tried to convince myself it was just wilderness smells, but deep down I knew something was very wrong with that animal. That night, I barely slept. Every time I looked out of my tent, the moose was still there, silhouetted against the stars, those blue eyes reflecting my flashlight beam like twin beacons of trapped humanity. Day 3 brought worse revelations. The moose followed me all day, keeping that exact distance. But now, I could hear sounds coming from his direction. Not moose calls, but something that made my blood freeze. Muffled human voices, like someone screaming through a gag, rising and falling in waves of agony. The sounds seemed to come from inside the moose's chest, as if something was trapped in there, struggling to get out. I passed 2 other hikers around midday, a couple from Oregon with expensive gear. I was desperate for human contact, for someone else to witness what was happening. I asked them, "Do you see that moose following me? Do you hear those sounds?" They looked confused. "What moose? There's no moose around here." But he was right there, maybe 70 yards behind me, clearly visible. Those human eyes locked on mine. The couple thought I was having altitude sickness or a psychological breakdown. They offered to call for help when they reached cell service. That evening, I reviewed my photos on my camera's LCD screen. In every picture of the moose, his mouth was forming different shapes. Clear, deliberate shapes that looked disturbingly like letters. But worse than that, in several photos, I could swear I saw a human face superimposed over the moose's features, translucent, like a double exposure, but definitely there. A man's face, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes wide with terror. Day 4, I encountered a park ranger doing trail maintenance. Perfect, someone official who could help. I explained about the moose following me for 3 days, about the sounds, about the human eyes. The ranger looked skeptical until I showed him the photos on my camera. His face went pale, then green. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "Ma'am, I need you to look at these pictures again. Look at the mouth shapes this moose is making." He pulled out his phone, opened an app called ASL Dictionary, American Sign Language. We compared the mouth shapes in my photos to the app's letter demonstrations. The ranger's hands were shaking as he scrolled through the matches. The moose was spelling words with its mouth. "Help, trapped, please, inside, get me out, can't die, so cold." The ranger stared at the photos for a long time. "Ma'am, I've worked in this park for 15 years. I've seen a lot of weird shit, but this..." He looked up at me with haunted eyes. "There are stories about this area. Missing hikers. 7 people vanished here over the past 20 years. All of them experienced outdoors people who should have known better. We never found bodies. We assumed they fell into crevasses or got taken by bears, but..." He showed me his phone, pulled up files about the missing hikers. Michael Torres, 34, vanished September 2003. Sarah Chen, 29, disappeared August 2008. David Kowalski, 42, went missing October 2012. 4 others, spread across nearly 2 decades. All solo hikers, all last seen in this exact area. "What if they didn't die?" the ranger whispered. "What if something happened to them? Something that trapped them?" That night, I couldn't sleep. The smell was stronger now, that rotting hospital odor mixed with something new. The metallic scent of blood and the acrid smell of pure terror, like the fierce sweat of a trapped animal. But underneath it all was the smell of human suffering, prolonged and unimaginable. I could hear voices now, multiple voices, all coming from the direction of the moose. Muffled screaming, desperate pleading, the sound of someone sobbing, human sounds trapped inside an animal's body. The next morning, I approached the moose carefully. He was standing about 40 yards from my tent, same as always, but now I could see other details that made me want to vomit. His fur was wrong, patchy in places, revealing skin that looked disturbingly human-like underneath. His hooves seemed almost hand-shaped, fingers fused together into solid masses, and when he looked at me, I could see human teeth behind his animal lips. I spoke to him directly, my voice shaking. "If you can understand me, nod." The moose nodded, and a sound escaped him that was purely human. A sob of relief, so heartbreaking that tears started streaming down my face. "Are you human?" He nodded again, more emphatically. "Are you trapped inside the moose?" Another nod, followed by that terrible human sobbing. "What's your name?" The moose's mouth moved carefully. "Michael. Michael Torres, missing since 2003. Trapped inside this animal body for 21 years. How do I help you?" Michael Moose turned and walked into the forest, off the marked trail. Against every hiking safety rule I'd ever learned, against every instinct screaming at me to run, I followed him. The smell got worse as we walked. That rotting hospital stench became overwhelming, mixed with something that smelled like burnt hair and ozone. The forest around us seemed dead. No insects, no birds, no living sounds except our footsteps, and that constant, muffled human sobbing coming from Michael's chest. The moose led me through dense brush for about a mile to a clearing I'd never seen on any park map. And there were more moose, 6 others, all standing in a perfect circle, all staring at me with human eyes, blue, brown, green, hazel. But these were worse than Michael. Their transformations were more complete, more grotesque. One had human hands instead of front hooves. Another had human hair growing in patches across his animal hide. A third had a human mouth grafted onto his moose face, lips moving constantly in silent screams. All of them were making those terrible muffled human sounds, crying, pleading, screaming. It was like being surrounded by a chorus of tortured souls trapped in animal bodies. I photographed them frantically, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the camera. Later, using the ASL app, I translated their messages. "Help us. We were hikers, something changed us. Can't die, can't leave. Trapped as animals. Please kill us." I spoke to them, my voice breaking. "What happened to you? How long have you been like this?" Michael approached a large boulder at the edge of the clearing. Using his antlers, which I now realized had human fingernails embedded in them, he scratched marks in the stone. Crude lines forming a map. I recognized the area, deeper into the backcountry, about 5 miles from here. He'd drawn an X in a valley I'd never heard of, and around the X he carved the words, "Where we died. Day 6. My last day before hiking out, I followed the map to the marked location. The wrongness began a mile before I reached the valley. The air became thick and oppressive, like breathing through wet cloth. Sounds were muffled and distorted. Colors became oversaturated and wrong. The sky too blue, the vegetation too green, like looking at the world through a fever dream. The smell was unbearable. That rotting hospital stench mixed with something ancient and evil, like the inside of a tomb that had been sealed for centuries. With every step closer to the valley, the smell got worse until I was gagging and covering my face with my shirt. At the center of the valley was a perfectly circular pond. The water was black and absolutely still. No ripples, no insects landing on the surface, no movement at all. But it wasn't natural stillness. The water seemed thick, viscous, like oil or blood that had congealed, and it stank of death and transformation. All 7 moose things had followed me. They stood at the pond's edge but wouldn't step into the water. Up close, their transformations were even more horrific. I could see human features trying to break through their animal hides. Faces pressing up from underneath the fur. Human hands and feet struggling to emerge from hooves. Human voices trapped inside animal throats. I approached the pond carefully and looked into the black water. At first, I saw only my own reflection. Then the surface began to ripple, despite no wind, no movement. The reflection changed. I saw myself, but behind my reflection, I saw the 7 moose, as they had been, as people. 7 hikers in different types of outdoor gear, staring back at me from the mirror surface of the water. But their reflections were wrong too. Their faces were twisted in eternal screams, their eyes wide with an agony that had lasted for decades. They were reaching toward the surface, clawing at the water from underneath, their mouths open in silent pleas for help. The pond didn't show what was, it showed what had been, and what was trapped beneath its surface. These hikers had died here, drowned in this cursed water, but something had kept their souls from passing on. Instead, their consciousness had been forced into the bodies of animals, trapped forever between life and death, human and beast. Michael Moose stepped closer to me, and I could see his human face more clearly now beneath the animal features. His blue eyes, which I now recognized from missing person photos, were filled with 21 years of unimaginable suffering. He lowered his massive antlers toward me, and I understood. He wanted me to end his suffering. They all did. Moose live 15 to 20 years naturally, but these creatures couldn't die. They couldn't age, couldn't escape, couldn't even properly kill themselves with their malformed animal bodies. They needed a human to kill them, to release their souls from this eternal torment. But there was another option, and I could feel the pond's influence growing stronger. The black water began to bubble and churn. I could hear voices calling from beneath the surface, the real voices of the 7 trapped souls, begging me to join them, to ease their loneliness by sharing their curse. The pond wanted fresh human consciousness to trap and transform. Michael Moose was leaning toward me, his massive antlers positioned to push me into the black water. But tears were streaming down his animal face, human tears from animal eyes. He wanted company, wanted to end the crushing loneliness of his supernatural prison, but he didn't want to damn someone else to the same fate. The smell from the pond was overwhelming now, not just death and decay, but the stench of souls rotting, of human consciousness trapped and fermenting in animal bodies. I could taste it in the air, metallic and foul, like licking a battery covered in grave dirt. That's when I heard it, my own voice calling from beneath the water. "Christina, help us, join us. It doesn't hurt after the first few years. You'll get used to it. We need you. We need human company. Please, Christina, just step into the water, just one step." The voice was mine, but I hadn't spoken. The pond was already trying to claim me, already creating a version of my consciousness to trap beneath its surface. I made my choice. I couldn't kill 7 moose things, even tortured human souls trapped in animal bodies. Legally, ethically, physically, I couldn't do it. But I could document everything. I photographed the pond, the creatures with their human eyes and malformed bodies, the reflections showing tortured souls instead of animals. I used rocks to build a cairn marking the exact GPS coordinates. Then I ran. I hiked out faster than I'd ever moved in my life, the sounds of human sobbing echoing through the forest behind me. The 7 moose things followed me to the edge of their territory, their cries of abandonment haunting every step. I reached the ranger station and reported everything. The Park Service found the pond and the moose herd, but they saw only regular animals in their natural habitat. They didn't hear the human voices, didn't see the human eyes, didn't smell the stench of trapped souls. When I insisted, when I showed them the photos proving everything, they banned me from the park for harassment of wildlife and dissemination of false information designed to damage park tourism. But I had the evidence. The photos showed everything: human eyes, ASL mouth shapes, the reflections of people where animals should be, the pond that trapped souls. I posted them online with the full story. Some people believed me. Most thought they were Photoshop or AI generated, despite the metadata proving they were unaltered. I researched the missing hikers obsessively. 7 people had vanished in that area between 2003 and 2021, all experienced outdoors people who should have known better. All their disappearances matched exactly with GPS collars attached to 7 specific moose for a park wildlife study. Those collars were still active. All 7 moose were still alive, despite being well past normal moose lifespan. The oldest, Michael Torres, should have died of old age 15 years ago if he were a normal moose. Instead, he's trapped in an animal body that can't age, can't die, can't escape the supernatural prison of his transformed existence. It's been 3 months since my hike. I quit teaching. I've become a full-time investigator, trying to prove what I experienced and expose the truth about what's really happening to missing hikers in Alaska. I return to that valley monthly, bringing offerings of food to the moose things, speaking to them, documenting their continued existence. Other hikers think I'm crazy. Park rangers escort me out repeatedly, sometimes forcibly, but I keep going back because I've discovered something even worse. They were people. They still are people. And I'm not abandoning them. My website, the Denali 7, Souls Trapped Between Human and Beast, has grown to 12,000 followers. Half think I'm insane. Half think I'm exposing a supernatural conspiracy the government wants hidden. I've documented 3 additional moose with human eyes joining the herd. New transformations. The pond is still active, still claiming hikers, still trapping human souls in animal bodies. Recent missing persons reports confirm my worst fears. Amanda Foster, 31, vanished June 2024. The same area, the same circumstances, and I've seen a new moose with green eyes and auburn fur patches that look disturbingly like human hair. The pond's influence is spreading. The area where normal wildlife behavior breaks down has expanded by nearly a mile since September. Other animals are beginning to show human characteristics: ravens with human voices, bears with human hands, wolves that walk upright. And no one will listen to the truth. I bring a gun on every visit now. I've trained in marksmanship, learned about anatomy, studied the most humane ways to end an animal's suffering. I haven't used it yet, but I'm considering it. Mercy, release. 7 murders to save 7 souls. I don't know which it would be. All I know is that 7 people are trapped in animal bodies, begging for help through eyes that shouldn't exist, and I'm the only one who believes they're human. Every month, I have to decide whether saving them means damning myself to prison for killing protected wildlife, or damning them to continue their impossible existence as conscious humans trapped in the bodies of beasts. Some choices don't have right answers. Sometimes you just have to live with knowing the truth that nobody else will believe, even when that truth involves the slow torture of human souls trapped in an endless supernatural nightmare. But here's what keeps me awake at night. Michael Torres spelled out one more message the last time I visited. One final communication that changes everything I thought I knew about their situation. Not alone. More places. More trapped. Find them. The pond in Denali isn't unique. There are others scattered across Alaska's wilderness, other places where missing hikers don't stay missing. They just become something else entirely. And if my research is correct, if the pattern of unexplained missing persons matches the supernatural evidence I've documented, then the 7 moose things in Denali are just the beginning. There might be hundreds of missing hikers trapped in animal bodies across Alaska's wilderness. Hundreds of human souls imprisoned in a supernatural nightmare that the authorities refuse to acknowledge exists. And I might be the only person who knows how to find them.